Oh, we are live.
Welcome to this special edition of the Bakwetu TV. And today we're going to talk about, we're going to have a roundtable discussion. And we are going to look at the current happenings or recent happenings in Zambia in the past 2 weeks. So in this roundtable discussion this evening, we'll examine some of the events of the last couple of weeks. We intend to offer our personal opinions and perspectives on them with the hope that we can stimulate discussions, debates around the same. Our hope is that through these discussions, debates, we can also contribute to the development of our country. We encourage you viewers wherever you're watching us to share this program, and also I'm going to share the link as soon as we start. And then if you want to come and join, it's a roundtable discussion. Come and join us. And also, Bakwetu TV crew, please feel free to join. I've already shared the link on all our platforms, and I'm also going to share on Facebook. Uh, Before we start, I just want to introduce some of the friends on the roundtable today. Bakwetu TV crew, Mr. Bimbe, my co-host, welcome to this special edition of the Bakwetu TV.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Paul Patrick, for having me.
Sorry. Womkeleba, you welcome to this special edition of the Bakwetu TV.
Thank you so much, Chilufya, Bimbe. Litumeza hulu stewasahi sukomu lutwela kaufela, and we are ready to kelumitela ni program ya luna. Vena Kopala, Vena Livingstone, I hope you are listening. We are back again. We are here for you guys. And Vena Chipata, Vena Mongu, Southern Province, Luapula Province, we are here for you. It's one Zambia, one nation. So please let us participate and support one another. Our eyes and our hearts are with you back home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Womkeleba. Without wasting much of our time, the first mind you, this is a discussion. So, despite being a moderator, I'll also be part of this discussion. So, first, I'll allow my other colleagues to make comments or debate, and then I'll talk at last. So, the first point we have, the first talking point we have today is about the International Women's Day and Youth Day celebrations, which just happened about 2 weeks ago, last week and the other week. A lot of events have happened in during these 2 weeks regarding the International Women's Day and the Youth Day, and we just want to talk about some of the events that happened. And also the questions we'll be asking is, what is what is the importance? What should we reflect on these day on these important celebrations like the Women's Day, which is the United Nations Day? The Youth Day is also United Nations Day. What should be the reflection? Are these events political? Over to you, Dr. Bimbe, or Mr. Bimbe.
Thank you. Thank you for the correction. Yes, I'm Mr. Bimbe, not yet PhD holder. Thank you very much. This is this is an interesting one. It's just, again, as we say, we are not experts. I'm not an expert in some of these things. However, as a citizen of the country, of the world, I have kind of my own opinion. I have to say, regrettably, that of late, I think starting from the beginning of probably the Patriotic Front, or again the MMD that time, it seems to me that these international events have been hijacked by politics, which is a bad thing. And once you start mixing politics with this, as we go towards the election year, they will become quite ugly in that sense. Now, if we go backwards and say, why are we celebrating? Because these events are set by the United Nations. We know there is this gender aspect to International Women's Day. It's about reflection. It's about celebrating. It's about thinking ahead of how our women folk and those other men that champion women's rights, are going to work together and are going to look at it. So when I look at the this year's theme, which is digital, innovation and technology for gender equality. I'm afraid I didn't see that coming out into the celebration. I think what we're missing is it became like, yes, we appreciate women as our wives, as whatever, I mean, it's a celebration. But this is a serious thing. We've seen, if you look at the numbers from the United Nations, just the disparity of women in technology, women developing especially tools like artificial intelligence, accessibility, equitability among the women. So how do we kind of solve that problem? And there are ways that the United Nations have suggested. For example, how do we encourage a girl child to take up STEM sciences? Because at the end of the day, we all know that AI, though good, it's as good as the data that it's fed on. So if the other gender, which is us men and probably white men, are the one developing these systems, there is an inherent bias in the way this technology happen, in the way the training data is happening. So having that diverse voice on the table is important. So I would have loved to see, talking about these things, maybe schools, maybe a year ahead, discussing some of these themes, having, competitions. Maybe even the government could have come up with, scholarships for women who've done well to encourage women to take up these sciences. But what we see is just politics and matching. Then after that, we go home. And next year, we start thinking ahead. Our friends in the developed world, they are thinking ahead 10 years from now. It wouldn't surprise me when, in the future, when these things are bedded down, we start foreigners or other people from outside the country coming to take up some of these jobs. It's because they've been thinking ahead. So that is the reflection part. We have women that have done so well, the Kankasas, everybody. We don't talk about them. We don't reflect about them. They've contributed to our, growth of the women. Look at the banks. I think most of the biggest banks in Zambia are run by women. Those are the women we should be celebrating, not matching with political regalia. I think, we need to really relook at this, how we celebrate, which is similar to the Youth Day celebration, whose theme was, again, very important theme, which was, transforming minds for accelerated youth development. Now, if you go again to what was happening in all these celebrations around the country, I don't think that theme was coming out. All what we saw was competition, you know, how many PF people were on the marching, how many UPND were on the marching. That's why we ended up having this fracas in Kitwe. It's because it's become political. It's losing that reflection that we need to think, where are we coming from? What do we have? Where are we going? What are those things that we need to put in place to get to that point that the UN and probably the African Agenda 2063 is talking to? These are serious things. It should start in the primary school, should be there. It should be in the secondary school. It should be everywhere, in the markets. It's not about the day itself. It's the, you know, starting maybe a year ahead, thinking through, reflecting, coming up. And also our media, our broadcasting, they should be picking up these things and start talking way in advance, recognizing what the day is. But instead, we just get politics, politics, politics.
So, Mr. Bimbe, before Bob Kelebai comes in, this is a roundtable discussion. So, what you're saying is, if I understand you properly, what you're saying is, like on the Youth Day, to start with, I would urge the government to on all these celebrations, Independence Day, Youth Day, Women's Day,
And we'll have Labor Day very soon.
the Labor Day, going forward, I would advise this is my opinion, I would advise the governments to make sure that they ban the wearing of regalia in these national events. They are national events. They are not PF events. They are not UPND events. Because what I discovered, like what I noticed, I knew that there was going to be problems. On the Women's Day, Mr. Bimbe, you have articulated properly what the Women's Day should be in accordance to the United Nations declarations. But what I noticed on the Women's Day, some of the PF people, it's like they planned it in such a way that they were going to have so many PF people in Ligaria. And they started celebrating that we won in Lusaka. You know, if elections were going to be held today, we're going to win. PF has bounced back. Look at how many people were marching wearing PF regalia. Then what happens on the Youth Day? They started fighting because of such things. So I think the government needs to delink these events from politics. Because if I was neutral and I want to go and attend, say, the next celebration that is coming, I don't know whether it's the Labor Day, and then I'm going to be scared to go there because UPND and PF will be fighting. So some political party can use these events to cause trouble. And what Mr. Bimbe said is right. As we go towards the elections, there will be more of these events coming, and they will bring anarchy to the country. And also, who should organize these committees? I believe the government should have an organizing committee for these events, mostly the church, you know, the labor society, the legal society, you know, the NGOs to organize these events. You know, the unions, if it's a Labor Day, to organize these events. And Mr. Bimbe, also, you made an important point. Youth Day, how do we celebrate it? Students in schools are youth. Why can't you start competitions in school 6 months, 8 months before that, and then come and give the awards at the Youth Day? How many children did well? How many kids did this? How many youth have done that? How many youth are in farming? Because youth is up to 35. How many youth are in farming? How many youth are in management? So to encourage people. And how many youth are we sponsoring today? Or how many youth have we helped? You know, there are a lot of scholarship all over the world. Commonwealth scholarships. How many youth did we help to do that? And you come and announce how many youth have achieved, big things in this year. And you come and announce that not to start fighting, who was so much who were wearing more regalia. I don't think that is not good for Zambia and the peace of our country. Over to you, Mukelebai.
Well, thank you so much for Bimba and Chilufya. What we need to know, it's quite a pity that we are talking about women's rights, and I don't see any woman here. It's just us men. We are on it again. Always, it's men that are in control and put women as either second or unable to participate because they are either busy or they still have this stereotype that we grew up with to say a girl child must be doing other things, that this should be only for men. I find the women's celebration, the Women's Day celebration, to be something that women should do, actually take charge, be in charge. They should not even let too much political. Me, I'm not going to do away with politics with the women. Women are also welcome to join politics, to participate in politics, and to participate in all kind of activities. But when it comes to men telling them what to do on that particular day, that's where we get it wrong. These politicians who come in to tell them what to wear, how to wear, when to do it, or at a fee, these are the people, and you find at the end of the day, these are men who are trying to drive a certain agenda so that they could just defeat or could make the other group feel inferior or feel bad. But women at the end of the day are at the center, again, being used. So, Mweba Nakashi, please, you have suffered enough at the hand of us men. It is my humble prayer and my humble cry to say, please, you know the kind of people we are, especially from Africa. We Africans, we know we don't have a way of treating or recognizing our rights, Yaba Nakashi. Whether we can tell from our current government or the previous government, the representation of women in the legislature or in the government, the executive, anywhere, you will find that women are not represented well. In government right now, in the current government, yes, we have the vice president, who is a woman, but look at the number. The numbers do not lie. And then here we are when the day comes to celebrate the women's rights, to recognize, to give awareness that women also have equal rights. They need equal pay. They need to be recognized just like men. It does not mean they're going to take over our manhood. No, our manliness. No. All they want to do is to be recognized as well as human beings that are able to bring something to the table, not to be treated differently. I was saying there was a number of so many women that came out that day in party regalias or in uniforms or in any kind of, but look at the politicians or the political parties they are representing. How many women are in those decision positions or decision making? Just a fraction, just a few. If anything, there are many women in these political parties than men. But who is ruling them today? It's men. So that's why I'm saying we should, of course, many have said that we should not politicize this event. We should not politicize it to a level where we start fighting. But we're not saying women should not participate in politics. Women, our women have been abused from memory of time. We have abused our women. Women had no right to vote. Women had no right to own land. Women had no right to equal salary. There were a lot of things. But what happened? As time evolves, they started to also finding their feet. And now they are busy celebrating and give awareness. So it is inevitable for Zambians, especially Zambians, to understand that women should be left alone to decide how to do or celebrate that day without any interference from Bene Lusambo, Bene, who are these guys in the ruling party? Bene Haimbe. We don't want, they can just give moral support. We want to see women making their own decision, celebrating their own day, just the same way as youths. Let the youths celebrate their own day in style. All the government will come in is to just beef up and give them the either material support to enable them celebrate in style. That's what I can say for now.
Thank you so much, Mukelevai. Before we move to the next topic, we're moving with time. We've got a number of topics to discuss. Our viewers, you're welcome to ask questions. You're welcome to join us. I've already shared the link. Just want to read the statement on the regalia by Upson Zuna Maus Chinda. The uniform in short teams brings, in short, I don't know whether it's short term or short teams, brings so many problems. I, for one, wants a peaceful Zambia with love and unity without any competition. So there is need for a policy or law that must be passed through parliament of not allowing party uniforms to be put on any national events. So this is his opinion. Yeah. Mr. Bimbe, can we move on? Have you got a point or two to add before we move to the next point?
Yeah, my point, I agree with the gentleman's approach. I mean, until our politics matures, I think it will be a time where probably we can be proud of wearing these uniforms. But these uniforms are actually a problem just coming from the past. I think we need to have a deliberate policy that should kind of ban this thing, the wearing of these uniforms, so that these events are quite peaceful. Yes, parties will celebrate. They can, we can have these events, then they can go in their own way afterwards to go and celebrate in their party regalia, so forth. And I like also the point raised by Kelevai. Of course, we don't have a woman here, unfortunately, which is, we've been trying to find a woman who can join us on some of this discussion, or all of the panels. So any woman, girl out there that wants to be part of this discourse or future discourses, please just send us a message. You are welcome. I also like the idea of the organizational aspect. I think having the people that are concerned with that event organize that event away from the political or government direction, I think is a good thing. And also, we need to move away from this idea of guest of honor thing where we have to bring a politician. Why can't we have a guest of honor who have achieved in some area other than a politician? Because these things becomes irrelevant at the end of the day. Because do you know what? Politicians
like Dambisa Moyo, for example.
Politicians don't speak, most of them, from their own belief. They read speeches that are just written for them. There's no passion in some of these things. So I think going forward, we really need to really rethink how we enhance these appreciation or reflections or celebration of some of these kind of events.
So, Mr. Bimbe, what I'm getting here before we go, these events should be a reflection of the achievements of specific
And the
groups like
challenges
women.
at the same time.
Women. So Mukeleba mentioned our own Baroness, who is in the House of Lords in London, Dambisa Moyo. He's saying these are some of the people who should come there and influence and encourage the girl child that if you concentrate on education, the sky is no longer the limit. And this government, HH talks about education all the time. We've got a Zambian lady. She must be maybe just above the youth, maybe in the 40s. I don't know. We don't talk about ladies' age, but she's young. She's been invited to sit in the House of Lords in London, but she lives in America. So imagine if that lady came on that platform and tell them, guys, I came from Kalingalinga. I did my first degree at University of Zambia, went to Harvard. Now I'm one of the most respected women in business. I've even been invited in the House of Lords in London, talking to the big people in London. So, and then, Mr. Bimbe, recently, a number of Zambian women have been given achievement, have been awarded by the United Nations, achievement in their fields in certain areas. Those are the women we should have brought to come and talk to the child, to the girl child, to the other women like Mizinga Miti. Because a lot of women don't know that we've got chief executives of one of the biggest banks in Africa. Absa is probably the biggest bank in Africa. But in Zambia, the CEO of Absa is a lady. Now imagine Mizinga Moyo come there and talk to the lady. So these are some of the things we need to talk about. And then the youth. We've got a lot of Zambian youth who are doing very well sport.
Exactly.
Yeah. Come there and have a reflection. I think in my opinion, this is what you should be doing. It's not instead of allowing selfish politicians to take over those events, hijacking those events to their own benefit.
Men, let's put it. It's men.
Yes.
It's men who are coming in to take over, you know, and wants to control, to continue delegating and making decisions. That is where we are getting it wrong. Let women themselves do the organization. Let the women themselves decide who to invite, who should be the guest of honor. It should not be the head of state all the time. It should not be senior government officials. We can also invite other women, like you have already stated, Bo Dambisa Moyo, Bo Doctor. I have another one person who is also in the United States, Bo Dr. Monde Muyangwa. She was recently appointed by the Biden the administration to be one of the senior official in the African whatever, I don't know, the portfolio, her portfolio. It's very well, highly respected there. She works with bodyguards. These are people, and she's Zambian, Monde Muyangwa. These are people that you need to invite as women. I'm speaking as women. To you, our fellow women, invite these such people. Bring them over to come and inspire the girl child down there.
Yeah,
avoid us. If I'm a politician, if tatwa katale, we will never
100% agree with you, Mukelebai.
And also you have to realize also with technology, you don't need the individual to be personally present. You can beam that, or you can put a prior recording that can be played.
Exactly.
So the whole idea is about reflection. It's about, thinking through. It's about appreciation. That's what is needed. That's why we need to move away with this concept of guest of honor.
My message, gentlemen, my message, gentlemen, is let men hands off.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay,
Men,
we
hand off.
agree on
Let
that, Mukelebai. Yeah,
women do their
yeah,
own
yeah.
things.
And Mukelebai, just in Zambia, we need to celebrate our own women. Just in Zambia, you know that our women's team is doing rubbish. Our men's team is doing rubbish. You know, and then look at the Shipolo Polo ladies. They are going to the World Cup in Australia.
Exactly.
So why can't we bring the captain of the national team on the Women's Day, or she's a youth, or on the Youth Day, and come and inspire, the young ladies that you can become the captain of the national team. You can go to Australia and represent Zambia in the prestigious Women's World Cup.
Yeah,
Let's move on, guys.
got a lot even in the farming. You've got the Z farmer, you've got these young people as well doing farming that can also.
Yeah, there's that lady who comes online. I don't know her name. Salome something.
Yeah.
She's
Yes.
perfect.
Probably
So now,
should be guest of honors.
because a lot of Zambians don't want to go into farming, though they are complaining about the Kenyan farmers. Zambians don't look at farming as a job. They don't, But look at Zalomes. She's a successful woman in farming. Now imagine she's standing on that podium on Women's Day. She'll inspire a lot of women, not only women, even men, to go into farming. Let's move on, guys.
Jealous.
Yeah.
Nava nakashiva Zambia jealous futhi nabo. Anyway, it's not time to blame women because I know bambi bale umfwilo umunavo wishing her to be like a destitute when they see her succeeding. So I know, but that's the only African way of doing things because we see it from us men, the way we treat each other. When someone has money, we start either demonizing them or try to put them somewhere. That's why you find that we end up stealing. But this is not time to talk about men because we're talking about women. So women should shine, should pick up the light, the torch, and shine on their day.
Fantastic.
And we men should just be there to support our women, not to kuwoma.
Fantastic. So Banalumango should have been maybe officiating the Women's Day as the second vice president.
No, I would.
But we don't want politics to be involved.
Chilufya, that wouldn't be worse because she's
now that will be politics.
That would be politics.
No, but it's okay. Let them enjoy. It is women to decide.
Let's move on, Mukelebai. Let's move on.
Or not politics.
Let's move on.
It's their baby.
Yes, let's move on.
Okay, thank you.
Now let's talk about the presidential visit to the Copperbelt. Let's talk about what are the positives in that visit. But then other people are saying it's too much. The president was in the Copperbelt and then he's back in the Copperbelt. And don't you think some other people should be doing that? And Mr. Bimbe, you must have heard the speech somebody made somewhere in the Copperbelt advising the president, about certain things. And, that we've been in power for over 6 months. It's time to start strategizing. Over to you, Mr. Bimbe.
Okay, thank you. So, the president's visit to the Copperbelt, I want to look at it from a strategic angle. The Copperbelt is bleeding at the moment. The Copperbelt is basically decimated because of the problems with the largest employers and the largest builder of the ecosystem within that provides livelihood to the people. And these are the mines KCM and Mopani. These are issues that, of course, needs to be resolved. And I, for one, think the president really needed to go so often to the Copperbelt to reassure the people that they are on top of this. It was a legal matter. Some of these contracts that were signed, for example, the Vendetta, Mopani, were really bad. Again, that's a negotiation. We've seen what happened with the liquidation of KCM. Those are not small things to solve. They cannot be solved. But we have to realize that those issues are now being resolved. And I think for the president to accord so much time on the Copperbelt is a good thing, as a way of reassuring the people on the Copperbelt that the government is dealing with their issue. They understand, they are looking at it. And also, it was one of those things that the president was there also to announce big things. He opened this new mine. He had time to talk with the clergy, the chiefs, to talk to them what's really going on. So to me, it's about this problem that is there, which was created, unfortunately, by our previous regime. And now they want to turn around saying, look, the Copperbelt, there's no money, there's nothing happening, contractors are not being paid. But yet, we know what the problem is. They created that problem. This government is trying to resolve that problem. So I think the president needs to spend more time there articulating that issue. Our ministers, yes, they can do that, but probably at this stage, because it's really critical, I think we need the president to really be showing the people that he really cares for that, of which I'm not saying he doesn't care. I think he really cares about the situation there.
Over to you, Mukelebai. The president's visit to the Copperbelt. What is your opinion? What do you think? Should he be frequenting Copperbelt, or do you support other people who are saying it's too much? He can't just be going to the Copperbelt all the time. Over to you, Mukelebai.
Fwebena Zambia tatakwata fe chisuma. President ayeko ku America, ayeko kuiso ku London, awe kamwende munjira, ekaleko panganda. Ayeko Copperbelt at no awe, it's too much Copperbelt. What do you want this man to do, Kanshi? You know, is he not Zambian? This is the man that the previous regime was restricted his movements. Ukuingira kuchipata pakafunye passport. Kwa Copperbelt pakafunye. Honestly, now that even when he is president, we still want to restrict his movements. Are we being reasonable? Ama Zambians, or any opposition, or any checks and balances, are we being reasonable? This is his country. It is his country and he's the head. Actually, guess what? He's the incumbent and he's the president. And he can go to any party of Zambia, and visit. If he wants to stay there for even 1 month or 1 year, it is his prerogative, and he chooses to. Zambia is not just Lusaka. Zambia is not just the Copperbelt. Zambia, it's big. So when you start criticizing the president for going to the Copperbelt, he has a mission. When we had the shortage of power, did we see the president jumping on a plane to go to Lilongwe or to go elsewhere? Where did he go? He went to the source. Where the problem was, he sat with the people and found a solution. Today, we are now have 24/7 electricity. We are not hearing anybody now complaining. Even though we can hear Bamungwingwi, they still want to talk about things that are not even there. We want to propagate everything in propaganda because we hate this person. We've hated him before. We wanted to kill him, and we are still going to talk about it, and we are still going to restrict even his movement. We should be ashamed of ourselves. Sometimes, no kwikara fezi chawama. That's why today, some of these Zambian people who are busy criticizing all these small little things are the ones that are making this government having difficulties in governing the country. because they're human beings. They get upset too, like anybody. They get frustrated like anybody. One day we just see someone say, "Ana filekai to alamon. I'm president for 5 years. Nala folesha free. Nganafuma, I'll just leave it. Whether I'm a one-term president or two-term, I don't care. What are you going to do? Who is going to starve and suffer more? It's the people." But this gentleman that we empowered, put in State House, he is a person that is result-oriented. Even this problem that we claim today we have, even this artificial hunger that we are busy talking about in the country, the cost of living, it is true, it's high. I am very, very pretty sure the cost of living is not fabrication. It is high in Zambia, and we know him being the problem solver. Definitely, we have hope and trust that he is working on it, and we know we will soon see results. So the visit of the president to the Copperbelt should not make people start raising imichila. No, let them just observe. If there's a problem on the Copperbelt, let Bali go there and fix it. People have been laid off. Nobody's even pointing a finger at Venalungu today. That these are the people who caused, they chased. We were sued as a country by the mine, the same people that they chased, that we still owe them on top of the billions of dollars that they owed, they borrowed carelessly. They go and chase arbitrarily a miner and then decide to take over on themselves. And look at what is happening. Baliquidata bene ebalekwata ama millions mu account yabo. Meanwhile, abantu abalevomba, ama miners, they were pushed out. They don't have jobs. But a liquidator, a simple chap, one individual, ishwe ndalama mule mfama 100 million, ama 40 million, mu account. Ama miners, they are still struggling. Lelo muime ati yo akainde. He has failed. No, Mwebe Kalachalo. Let's be honest to each other. This gentleman is trying to solve this problem that was created by the previous. Let him go. If it means him staying in the Copperbelt for 1 month, so be it. If it means that the problem that he has gone there to solve, even though he has not told the Zambian people that I am going to the Copperbelt to fix this problem, he is there on an official business. Let him do the job, whether he's visiting the miners or is talking to the people that were chased so that they could either come back or go away. Let him do his job. Let us just rally behind him and give him the support that he deserves. Unlike busy throwing stones to make his job so difficult so that when he fails, we think we are punishing him. Because when HH fails, to be honest with you, mwema miners, mukekala muchalo for years, ila inenye mboa imbele pilato, mukalalu ala fiama TB. Because amama politicians, they will not even come and help you. Ukumishitile miti muchipatala. When you are dying there. Vena na bakwata, avena milingo, mwene mpia wafu minena shu. Ama liquidators. So be honest, mwevana Zambia, please na papat. Ababalefo kula paint a wrong picture of the current government that is going there to just lie to the people. No, Narium for even one of the member of parliament from Kankoyo, our brother, was like, I'm sorry, I'm disappointed. No, you don't do that, brother. The journey is too long. The tenure of office of this president is 2026. It's 5 years. Do not rush and jump the gun. It is you who was busy promising people without having done proper research. Go back to the people and tell them the solutions are on the way. They will soon be smiling. Soon will be smiling. Atakuwa bama shortcut bane. Ngomulandu ali mu court. Then the court decide to say go and resolve this matter ex securia, outside court settlement. Kabieni kalanshanyi. Because these guys, they owe, you owe, as a government, we owe. We owe that mine that was fired by Venelung colossal sum of money. They will come back to us and bankrupt us. So let us just be honest. The trip of the president to the Copperbelt was inevitable, was necessary, and let him be there. It's for the benefit of the miners, the benefit of the mining companies, benefit for every Zambian. So let him fix the problem. And we know wherever HH goes, he solves problems. Not that.
Mukelevai, I think I support most of the comments by Bimbe you've made and Mukelevai. By the way, Don Pablo Mpombo, welcome, Father Mpombo, or he's gone. Yeah, some of the people who are making noise, they actually banned the president when they were ministers to go to the Copperbelt. We don't have to mention their names. But then, the problems that are in the Copperbelt is, like Mr. Bimbe said, is bleeding, were caused by them. Imagine 2 major employers in the Copperbelt were messed up by the PF, Mopani and Vendetta. Now should the president go to the Copperbelt often? 100% support that, because the Copperbelt is so strategic to Zambians, to Zambia, and also to UPND in terms of business, in terms of politics. The Copperbelt contributes 60% of our GDP, and 2 major mines are not operating at maximum capacity. Mopani needs recapitalization because the PF grabbed the mine without thinking, and then they need to solve the problems within data. Not only that, this government has paid the benefits, retirement and retrenchment benefits for the workers who were retrenched by the former owners of the mines or the owners of the mines. And the PF couldn't pay that money, but this government is paying that money. And, away from the Copperbelt, former Tazara workers, 15 years, they haven't been paid. They've been paid now. They are celebrating. But why is the Copperbelt so important? The president needs to sort. The president is working day and night to solve those problems with those 2 mines. I heard that Mopani will soon be recapitalized, which is very good. And look at Indeni. Indeni has now been commissioned to start bringing refined fuel. And also, I'm told they will be making diesel there in Ndola. Imagine, Ndola, my town, is a dead town. There's nothing that happens in Ndola. Now imagine Indeni back in Ndola. There will be more jobs in Ndola, more business, and then the Zambian transporters, they will be allowed now to transport fuel. I'm told they couldn't get fuel from Dar es Salaam. They were always frustrated. So now imagine the amount of money that is gonna flow in Ndola and flow into the economy. And not only that, fuel is one of the major contributor of the high inflation in Zambia we are facing, the high prices of goods. So when fuel starts coming from straight from Dar es Salaam, there will be no middleman. So fuel prices will start going down. Goods will start going down. Not even the kwacha might start strengthening. because we won't be spending more kwacha, more dollars than we are spending now. And then politically, why is the Copperbelt so important? No political party has survived in Zambia, even winning the second term without the Copperbelt. So the Copperbelt is so strategic that the president should be going there all the time. And I'm also happy that the president made the Cleggies, the chiefs, and other people, and I heard one guy today was advising the president that something needs to be done as a party. We need to start strategizing, and we need to get rid of the people in the government institutions that are not helping the government to implement its policies. They are enemies in the system. So all those comments were made while the president was in the Copperbelt. Why are the prices of commodities so high, especially fuel? Most of the European countries, including the UK and Germany, they are facing serious inflation and high cost of commodities. Where I live here, my energy bills, electricity and gas, has doubled. Everything has doubled. Inflation in the UK has been the highest in the last 28 years. In the last 28 years, 18 years since, yeah. So it's because of the war in Ukraine. But now that the war things are stabilizing and the supply chains are stabilizing, we're gonna start seeing now the price of fuel going down, and that's gonna impact the price of fuel in Zambia also. So, and that's what I wanted to say about that. Father Mpombo, any comments on that?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, all the panelists.
We were talking about the president's visit to the Copperbelt.
Yes. Especially, I've tried to join the panel, particularly on this matter, because I'm a Kitwe resident. From Kitwe, but I studied in Ndola at Chiwala boarding school. And so I've lived in Ndeke for many years, and I was very happy. I was following the academics in the Copperbelt. So I would like to share as well. First of all, good evening, all the viewers, all the people who are following this TV Bakwetu program. It was very interesting. It was very, very, very encouraging, the meeting that the president had in the Copperbelt, especially the one he had in Kitwe, and I understand as well in Chingola, because it was the first provincial UPND meeting, first provincial Copperbelt UPND meeting. And as all of you gentlemen, you understand, in the Copperbelt, there is no sugarcoating. The people, they go straight forward and they talk about serious business. You can even notice that what the president uttered in that first national UPND provincial meeting, he has never come out so strongly the way he came out in the Copperbelt. So it is not something strange. It is not supposed to be a surprise, but who has stayed in the Copperbelt, you understand that the people there are straightforward. So regarding the crisis in the Copperbelt, for sure, as some of you have already pointed out, there are quite a number of problems regarding the mines, especially, and many sufferings. I don't know, one of our friends here was saying that probably the economy is not biting. It is really biting. Even people who are having good jobs, civil servants, the teachers, head teachers, everyone, the economy is quite challenging. We understand it's not because of Bali, but it's because of the status debts that we have, high prices, and now also that crisis regarding the fuel and the lack of employment. Now, I wanted to say this. Very interesting, the meeting in the Copperbelt, because the people, the youth, they told the president the truth. They said, we have a crisis here in the Copperbelt. Lack of employment, the crisis in the mines, and there is one point they underlined to the president. The party is nowhere here in the Copperbelt. I would like to emphasize this. Mr. President, let no one cheat you. We don't have people on the ground. And they have neglected the party members. This was wonderful. And the president said, I have listened. We have listened. We are going to engage you. We are going to come back to the party leaders. If you can remember, gentlemen, then the president said, if the members of parliament are not going to understand or to listen or to answer your phone calls, call my office. I will come in personally. Because the people in the Copperbelt, they said it's point blank. They are not listening. They are not answering to the phone calls. When you go and see them, they don't discuss with you. So really the party was in a difficult situation. And wonderfully enough, the president acknowledged that, and he said, I think it's time we go back and strengthen the party. Not only we are going to implement the government programs, but I think we are not going to neglect the party. And for that point, allow me to add this one. I know probably you are going to touch the CDF thing. The party members in the Copperbelt, they say, from what the government has done, it's quite beautiful. The CDF, which has gone up to 25.8. Now, the Copperbelt youth, they said this to the president. Where is the CDF money? We don't see the money. This was from the Copperbelt, gentlemen. We don't see the money. And the councillors who are in the CDF committee, they don't answer us. And as everyone knows, most of the councillors were from the Patriotic Front in the Copperbelt. Okay? We might have one minister there, another minister on the other side. But the councillors, most of them, they are part of the opposition. So now you understand the difficulties. Actually, what the youth from the UPND were crying for was we were in the opposition, no chances. We are now ruling the government, no chances, because the CDF, through the councillors and some of the MPs, has gone into the hands of the same cooperatives which were formed in the previous regime. And this has been a reality in the Copperbelt, and I was very happy. I was happy that the president didn't want to defend himself. He said, yes, we have listened. And then also the last thing that I can also mention, the people in the Copperbelt, Mr. Patrick, they have complained of how the UPND has handled the Black Mountain saga. And if nothing is going to be done in the Copperbelt, that one is going to be a very big challenge. The people from Usakili, Miseshi, Mindolo, Chamboli, Parklands, Riverside, and Nkana East, they were waiting. They formed cooperatives that they were going to be given some funds from the Black Mountain. And the money, they are still asking, where has the money from the Black Mountain gone to? And this one also, I think I'm saying this. I'm trying to be the like the devil's advocate, not because I'm shunning the successes and the hard working of the New Dawn government, but I'm saying in the Copperbelt there were serious challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Mpombo, for that,
Wampombo,
for those comments. Mukeleba, I think
Wampombo.
we need to move. We need to move forward. Let's
Yes,
talk about that in
I
our
just
closing
wanted,
remarks.
I just wanted to say it on a lighter note. That Wampombo is a priest and he's saying I want to be a devil's witness. I was like, those things contradict.
Okay. That's very good. That's very that's humorous, Mukelebai. Let's move on. Let's move on now, guys. The next topic we're gonna talk about is a very important topic. Though this topic is a sad situation, and for our friends in Malawi, yeah, we're gonna talk about the impact of the Cyclone Freddy in America, in Malawi. Malawi is currently in a crisis. The Zambian government has already donated $1 million. A lot of organizations, charities, United Nations, they are donating money to Malawi because
Did you say Zambia donated $1 million?
let me finish. Yes, Zambia has donated 20 million
Okay.
kwacha, which is $1 million. That's news. Uh, um, and so the question to the panel, starting with you, Mr. Bimbe, what can be the lessons from the impact of Cyclone Freddy to Zambia and most African countries? Over to you, Mr. Bimbe.
Thank you very much. Before I offer my opinion, I would like to say really sorry for our brothers, sisters from Malawi. I'm fond of Malawi because I've spent some time in that country, Lilongwe, Blantyre, Mangoche, very beautiful. It's so sad that we lost lives, but through this unfortunate situation. So that's my point, and it's very good that Zambia, as a country, as a good neighbor, has mobilized resources together with other countries as well, and Zambia has contributed to that through our own DMMU, which is very good, very commendable. That's very good leadership, very good maintaining those kind of relationships. Now, coming to the lessons, I think this is one of those disasters. Let's not talk about other disasters. Let's just talk about this. This is disasters that are coming out of what we now know as climate change. They are going to continue. They are going to be brutal going forward. So what we need to learn as countries, even Zambia, is to start being prepared with this. There is a Ministry of Green whatever and Environment, and we need to start really building in adaptability and resilience in whatever we are doing. Early warning systems are very, very important. We can't always rely on other people because, I mean, the National Geographical Societies, even the National Geographic, in geological surveys, are monitoring these things. If you look at the US and other countries, they can monitor these things and prepare so that the impact, especially loss of life, is minimized. But at the same time, there is a livelihood also to look at. This comes again to the whole idea of food security. I think FRA needs to start moving in. DMU also should move forward and become more proactive rather than reactive. We can't always have a situation when something happens, for example, in Zambia, floods happen, that's when we go, there's a lot, for example, any flash floods or just heavy rain, short one. There are floods in Lusaka, for example. This is a design issue. This is because of where Lusaka sits. I think these are things that we need to start looking at. I think planning is important to start anticipating these problems, and education awareness is important. So how do we do that? Of course, we need to start sensitizing our people on, adaptability. We need to start changing our behaviors. We need our scientists in the universities to find a solution to the old age problem of using charcoal from wood so that we preserve these trees. We need to start working on cheaper way of producing energy for cooking, for household, and for livelihood, for that matter. Mitigation. We need to start, whatever we develop, housing complexes, buildings, needs to be looked at, the environmental aspect, the drainage system. People shouldn't just put concrete paving all over without really thinking where the water is going. I think the bylaws needs to be enhanced. So we need to be aware this is a problem that will continue and it will become worse. So we need to be prepared. We need to be proactive. We need to start sensitizing a lot of our citizens, even just doing other business. For example, sometimes where we work, to get a contract, for example, even where we are getting services for cloud. I work in IT, cloud services. If we are trying to get business with the government, we have to say where that electricity to power that data center is coming from. Is it renewable? So it has to start from somewhere where we start building in all these requirements in terms of procurement, in terms of what we do. Climate awareness needs to be built into those things, everything that we do. Going forward, we start, changing that behavior, and hopefully we can start, building those resilience that we need in our system. I think
fantastic. That's fantastic, Mr. Bimbe. Just to add a bit, I think we need to start realizing that climate change is real. And as Mabimbe mentioned, we've got Ministry of Green and Environment. That's their job, to start sensitizing the people. And then we've got the Ministry of Agriculture. Are we going to die because there's a drought? This is the time to start planning now. If you remember, under President Mwanawasa, Mr. Skatana was the Minister of Agriculture. They came up with winter maize. How did they do it? We've got a lot of water in Zambia. We can start investing money in irrigation, so that one day there's a drought, we can grow maize in June. We can grow maize every year, because maize is our staple food. We can grow vegetables throughout the year. So these are some of the things we need to. And then Babimbe also mentioned a very important disaster management. They shouldn't just be firefighting. They should work with other organizations to start planning for these disasters. We shouldn't just wait for the disasters to come and then we react. No. In other countries, I would give, even some African countries, South Africa is not far away. There are areas where they think there will be floods. There are areas where they think the sea is gonna expand, and it's gonna affect the houses that are near the sea. You know what they do? They build barriers, to protect water from going out should the sea rise. So you tell me they were going to wait until the floods have now reached into the house and then they build those walls and barriers. But they do it, they plan it in advance. In Lusaka, there is a hotel in a very important area of Lusaka. I think it's near Arcades. I'm not going to mention the name of the hotel. I don't want to be sued. People were warned that you cannot put a hotel there because it's a swampy area. There's a river there. If you have to put a hotel there, you have to suck the water, and the drainage system has to be fantastic. What did they do? They went and built a hotel, and then when the rains came, the entire hotel was in water. Just in one of the townships, the ShopRite, shop was swimming in water. You tell me ShopRite doesn't have the capacity to make sure that they put proper drainage there? So which means our institutions are not working with these organizations. Is it corruption? Is it poor planning? Because somebody knew where ShopRite is putting that shop. It's a swampy area. It's going to flood one day. So some of these things, we can stop them. We can prevent them instead of firefighting. And food security, very important. It's part of the 8 national development plans. We can plan even, cyclones that are in Malawi. Instead of firefighting, we can strategize, come up with plans, and make sure that we cannot stop them 100%, but we can mitigate. We can reduce the impact, to the people, to the society, to the business, etc., etc. Over to you, Mukelebai. What is your take on this topic?
Thank you so much, brothers and war priest Mpombo. I have not much information on the Cyclone Friday, but my worry is that my country, African countries, are being affected. Even when we don't have industrialization, we are busy complaining of our economical hardships right now because we don't have foreign investors. We cannot even produce the toothpick. If we talk about not taking care of ourselves in terms of disposal of trash, if garbage. Yes, if that contributes to global warming, then we are guilty. And also, when it comes to deforestation, yes, we have lived on charcoal for so many years, but that's the only cheapest source of energy that our own brothers and sisters, our own parents can afford. And we have never seen our government or even people, these are in the environment, going out to the people, even plant trees, having a project where they are going to plant trees so that they could replace these woods that we are busy burning on charcoal and stuff, trying to make the life cycle. We are not, but we keep on burning charcoal. People have found their livelihoods on other people are even educated. We have people that are lawyers to the doctors, engineers, out of the very charcoal we want to bash. But there has never been anyone that has come up with a program to say, let's go, a deliberate policy by the government that to say, let's go and plant trees. Instead of politicking, insulting one another, pointing fingers, let's go and plant trees so that at least our brothers and sisters could have more charcoal or we could save the environment. Industrialization here now, if you gas shan polluting the air, because in Africa, in Zambia in particular, we have no production going on. We cannot even manufacture a toothpick. So apopena mara tuwe pesha. But Malawi, I'm not going to say much kuli ba Malawi, but because they are geographically located at a place where this cyclone is moving, and definitely Yes, we are going to feel the impact because of big countries that are really in China, these the same chaps where we get money from. By America, by Europe, these are the people who are actually polluting, who are even making this thin layer in the atmosphere being so thin, so that we are having all this global warming. Kuno, up in the north, the ice crashes, they are now melting. Go to the North Pole, everything is melting. Why? Because of the effect of these economies that are countries that are doing so well, and they are not into trying to fight or try to reduce this pollution that they are making. Today we are going for car batteries. We don't know the pollution, the environmental risks that we are going to take even when we start this project. But we are looking at it from the monetary point of view. So I am not an expert in global warming and pollution, but I would simply say nga olefaya okwikala atumwikala patalala umwine eyo patalalika. If we want to live in a peaceful and clean environment, it should start with us. Look at the manner, look at how cholera has been attacking us. Look at all these preventable diseases. But what have we done? We ignore. We think it's only the people that should fight this. It's only the local authorities or the government. But as for people, we are not responsible for anything. Today, we even purchase plots, either illegally or legal, and then we find that our houses are submerged in water during flood. The flood that we created our own selves because we ignorantly did not take into account to prevent this or to avoid this, even making a research to find out. Ignorance is not a defense in any court of law. You cannot kill somebody and say, so people ought to take things seriously. The government that we had put in power at the time carelessly sold bambi wale mkukula ama plot mu ground, the recreation places. What do you expect? People are throwing garbages anywhere. What do you expect the effect to be? Ngakwaise mfula. Or ngakwaise those things that we are busy throwing out, plastics, that is oil, made out of oil. Those are the things that are going to kill us. Those are the things that are killing us. Ngatatulefishika, tatulefiposero kutalifisoso. Those are the things that are going to cause cancer. Muma okulowala, muma oma diseases yali otamwishi benoko yarefuma because you are subjected, you have been introduced to a certain toxic. And when we come to our mines, the mine investors that we bring in our country and give them tax rebate or tax holidays, they do not care about environmental justice. They will be the people throwing things, dirty, toxic materials in the water that we drink. And yet we, the Zambian people, or we, the people of Africa, we are looking. All we are interested in is Kangono, Nizadiamo Zingat, for as long as they have employed us. Today we are even busy talking about, what is this, Black Mountain? What is Black Mountain?
Yeah, Bom Kelebai, let's move on. We're looking at time now. Let's give
Black Mountain is
the time also.
Black Mountain. Black Mountain came as a result because those things that they throw, the miners themselves, that is toxic. And that is where we allow our people to go and salvage, get something out of it so that they can go and sell. and make money for themselves. And today our government wants to legalize it now, to say you should have a license. Oh, mufire mwapanga ama echansha. You know, what I'm trying to say is that we are doing this to ourselves. We should just be vigilant, and our government, because we always point a finger at the people that are governing us, to please come up with policies instead of politicking, pointing fingers. These are issues that you can bring in to prevent us from having these cyclones or these preventable diseases. If it's a natural cause, yes, we should be ready for it. That's why we have universities to do their researches. We have intelligent people to warn us. Kuleisa cyclone, kuleisa spacecraft na ipona, kuleisa eliwe fuma kumun. We should be aware of those things. I think, let me not go very further because I'm not privy to this information, to this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Mokelebai. Thank you for contribution. Father Mpombo, the lessons to be learned from the Cyclone Freddy in Malawi.
Yes.
Particularly our country, Zambia, and most African countries. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I had the privilege also to suggest to some of the friends there in the government, I think, to take the move that the government has taken, because staying here in Italy, we are, you know, Italy is a country where we have earthquakes every 4 to 5 years. We have earthquakes, so there are organizations for emergencies, and so when I've experienced these civil protection groups and associations, I had to suggest as well that maybe the government would move in that terms. Thank God there's been quite a quick response. By then the president was in Kitwe when we had that flood, the cyclone, sorry. When our friends in Malawi, they lost a lot of people, and quite enormous damage to infrastructure in Malawi, which will take it will take time for the government in Malawi maybe to put things in place. Now, sorry, my condolences to the families who have lost their beloved ones in Malawi. And I think we can also remember the damages which has been done as well in Mozambique, because the cyclone initially began in Mozambique, and then in Malawi it has been quite devastating. So the lessons to be learned, we need, as some of you people have already said it before, we need to organize now ourselves. The disaster management is there in Zambia, it's not enough. Straightforward, Mr. Patrick, I thought of the SADC countries to come out with some money. They have, each country can donate a certain amount, and in the SADC region, we have some funds which are just there for emergencies. When with these climate changes, you never know what is going to happen. Today, it has occurred in Malawi. Just yesterday, Mr. Patrick and all the panelists, we have some signs of the same Cyclone Freddy, which might reach Muchinga province in the Eastern province. So Eastern province, especially Muchinga province, might also experience a lot of rainfall and floods as well. So, of course, at the moment, I don't think the government, we have measures already in place, apart from the disaster management and other things. And thank God, the army have been deployed. Actually, the army, the Air Force have been deployed to help in this disaster, which is kudos the government. We just hope now the government to sit down. This is not supposed to be political. It is supposed to be how to protect the citizens. tomorrow what might happen. Now, these floods, Mr. Mkeleba, look at the situation in our country. I would like to underline this. We did not have good rainfall this year. And you remember also maybe some problems that we had with the fertilizer thing and so now. Actually, we might not have a good harvest this year. Two factors. Rainfall wasn't so even in all the country. In some parts of Ndola, some parts of Kitwe, there is drought actually. So the rainfall hasn't been so that beautiful around the clock. Now, we had, from the previous government, we understand that we had a lot of maize in stock. And now in next year, we don't know whether we are going to have enough maize. Myself, what we can learn from this is, I think the government should not exhaust the stock that we have. The government needs to look in terms of what is going to happen next year, because not only maybe our friends in Malawi are not going to have mealie meal, or not only our friends in Congo are going to lack mealie meal, but this might happen that our own Zambian people tomorrow, they can start lacking mealie meal, or the prices of mealie meal are going to shoot up again. So I would suggest in this, maybe the government to be a bit cautious and probably keep some maize for emergencies. We don't know what is going to happen. Now, about the flood, I am in Italy, Mr. Patrick. We have a town here, symbolic town. It's called Venezia, or Venice in English. Venice is a very good town where we can learn something. These people, they have built houses in water, Mr. Patrick. I think especially with that disaster I've seen in Lusaka, if our country can send some technicians, some architects, some engineers to come and study how the Italians, they protect themselves in that state, which is called Venice. In Italian, we call it Venezia. It's very, very helpful. The Zambian people, the Lusaka, can learn something from this town, Venezia. There are many architectures around the world, Mr. Pato, who come to this town to learn architecture, how the Italians have done, how they can keep on, because it is surrounded by the ocean, sorry, by the sea. So when they have high waves, and really it's impressive, 2 meters of water in the houses, but they have done the construction of these houses in a certain way that even if the water enters into the house, their house cannot be damaged. So my advice to the country as well, the problem we have in Lusaka, the bad construction which has occurred for some time, if our country can send some architects, some engineers to come and study something in Venezia, in Venice, in Italy, I think it's going to help as well. Thank you.
That was fantastic from Mukelebai and Father Mpombo. Mr. Bimbe, any comment before we move on to the next topic?
I also want to believe that I think we need to strengthen our meteorological department, and you working with the Department for Geology to start putting up early warning systems for some of these things. But I think the key for now, especially in Lusaka and other areas, is kind of strengthening the planning laws, the planning bylaws, such that one of the criteria that should be put in place that whoever is building has to meet is that part of how are they going to mitigate floods. They need to have a way of letting water pass and probably regulating this paving. I know it makes houses, properties look beautiful, but paving is one of those things that can cause floods because it doesn't allow water to go underground. So certain things can be done. There are low-hanging fruits that can be done by doing some of those things. As Omkilebaya said, cholera is just around the corner. The other thing is also, the cleaning up of the whole environment. For example, the CBDs. I know it's a very emotive issue. Trying to clear vendors from these places where rubbish is thrown all along. That also can cause an environmental disaster in terms of disease. And nowadays, disease is now considered a security issue. If you find, we come from COVID, a lot of public health departments now, like, for example, in the UK, they've been renamed as, for example, Public Health England is now called UK Health Security Agency because it's now becoming a security issue. So that needs to be, we need to start strengthening some of these institutions by capacitating them. As Wompombo said, sending some of our engineers or planners to some of these places that they've managed to solve some of these problems. Always being proactive, I think, is a better way than trying to fix the problem once it has happened. It's costly. It can cost lives, as we've seen in Malawi, we've seen Mozambique, and it can cost livelihood as well. So that would be my contribution.
I think that was fantastic, Mr. Bimbe. I think planning is very important, because if we plan, we avoid the firefighting. We avoid the president going to Livala on a Sunday to go and see how those houses are flooded, which could have been avoided. And you mentioned strengthening some of these institutions. We've got engineers in the planning department of the council. Local government, we've got engineers there. Yes, certain places might be might be potential for floods or swampy, but if they work together with the engineers, the government, and if people, because if you have to build on a swampy area, then you need to spend more money, more concrete, more money, and also monitored by the engineers from the government. I would give you an example. I did my high school in Ndola. There was a place which was swampy. The river there was a small river passing through there. And everybody thought nobody would build anything there because it's expensive to build there. Zambia State Insurance bought that land and they built Impendo House there. And it's never flooded because the engineering, the planning was fantastic because they knew that that place is swampy. And they built, they had to put a structure in such a way that it could withstand, the floods and everything. Let's move on to the next topic. The next topic we're going to talk about is we earlier on we talked about the importance of celebrating the Youth Day, and we said let's not politicize these celebrations, the Youth Day, the Women's Day, all those national events. And one of the one of the events we talked about was the Youth Day. And in this program, we're going to talk about one of the problems facing the youth in Zambia. And it's the issue of the vulnerable children living in the streets. And in Zambia, they even call them junkies. Even policemen call them junkies. But the question is the use of the word junkie to describe a vulnerable section of our society in order? And what should the government do to solve this problem? Over to you, Mr. Bimbe.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick. Let me start this way. from my belief, this section of our society, these are the young people, the street children. I think a lot of them went into the street not because they want to, it was circumstances. We have to go backwards. There was a ravage, breakdown of families, i.e. through the epidemic, the HIV/AIDS. And then, of course, the economy started biting. A lot of these children became orphans. Jobs were scarce. There was no parent to keep. And then we have also to look at our family structures now in Zambia. I think the extended family system is dying out. It's not that much as the way it was when we were growing up. And unfortunately, these children found themselves in the streets. Now, most of them are adults. And obviously, as adults, they've got ages. They might even start having babies in such environment. And that becomes the way of life because they've got to survive that trauma and the their survival instinct as human being animals we are. We find ways to deal with that thing. And then, of course, there is the other part of the aspect of wanting to survive is to numb the pain. And the easiest way for a lot of people in those situations might tend to drugs and alcohol abuse or substance abuse, just to numb that pain. So this is the situation we have. However, instead of society, especially the church, the government, and everybody, we call ourselves a Christian nation. But yet we are happy to donate so much money to the papas, to the whatever. And then the church will, like in the previous, they will try to entice government to give them money. Yet, this is a society, the underground society that we've neglected. And to me, it's a time bomb. Here is the scenario. We think us as normal society, this group of this section of our society, they become a nuisance. They are a pest now. And we call them junkies. Very, very crude word. And I have to say, even the police, I've heard even the Minister of Internal Security using the same word. I think it's unfortunate because labeling those people that need help with such kind of derogatory terms creates in the people the normal society that these are normal, not human anymore. They are a menace, they are a pest. Here's the scenario then. People, the normal people, start attacking this group of people because they're a pest. They are vermin. And because as humans, they'll try to defend themselves. They'll arm themselves one day. And there will be fights. There will be a breakdown of law and order. Right? And that is a grand scenario that is going to happen. So, I don't know. It pains me. We're a Christian nation, for God's sake. Surely, we need to recognize that this is a problem. It needs concerted effort from both the government, civil society, the church, to come together, create an indaba or whatever, come together, craft policies, craft something that will help alleviate this coming time bomb. they ought to be aware. We are a poor country, yes, but we cannot leave that society behind and shun it as not good enough and label it as junkies. It's sad. Where is the Ministry of Social Affairs? They need to be in the forefront to start having deliberate policies to try and help our people. There will be diseases that will be, manifesting itself among that group of that population. It will bound to go into other societies. Mental illness is another thing that will come up. The government will have to deal with. Our health systems are not up to scratch, I don't think, to handle such a situation. So the best I can say is we need to recognize it as a social problem that we need to fix, but fixing it with compassion and not the way we want to fix it by using police force. I think, to me, that is the way I want to look at it. I just hope all those people that call themselves Christians, every day praying, that call themselves compassionate, they can sit up and start recognizing that this is a problem that we need to handle in a better way, not the way we want to handle it. Because where are we going to put them? In prison? Are we going to build so many prisons just to put unfortunate young people that have found themselves in that situation, not because of their own fault, but because of circumstances? I think we need to be a better country. We need to do better than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bimbe. I was I never knew about this junkie word until you told me, and I was so sad that Zambia, which calls itself a Christian nation, and we've got a day of prayer and fasting on the 18th of October, and we've neglected a lot of kids living in the streets. And not only that, we call them junkies. It's so sad. And without knowing that these junkies, they are a time bomb. These are the people who will be attacking us in the street. And I just want to quote Mahatma Gandhi, somebody I truly respect, when it comes to human rights. A famous quote from Mahatma Gandhi springs to mind here, Mr. Bimbe Mukelebai. And I quote, "The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats the most vulnerable members." These kids are vulnerable, and this is how we treat them. We label them, we give them names. It's like abana abachula, we call them poverties. And yet it's the duty of the government to make sure, because the other thing I wanted to say is we are members of the United Nations. And what are some of the rights according to the United Nations? Universal rights: rights to education, rights to property, rights to food, rights, to proper medical care. And then our president talks about education. And I respect that. Education has made him the way he is now, from a Kachema to an economist to a CEO of one of the biggest accounting firms in the world to a president now in Zambia. So if we deny education to those people, are they going to become the HH of this world tomorrow, or are they going to become criminals? And who is going to be affected? Us, our children? So I think we need to start looking at these people not as junkies, but as future problems, a time bomb, a problem that we will never solve, because we are very good at firefighting. Just like we talk about the cyclone, we are good at firefighting instead of preventing certain things happening. Abasungu, they've got policies, in place, child poverty policies, because poverty, the rights to good food, poverty, education, there is no child in the UK who will stay in the street and doesn't go to school. Those parents will be in trouble. That child will be grabbed by the government, and the government will make sure that child is educated. But as we are a Christian nation, some of these people, they don't even go to church. But how come they talk about equality? How come they talk about equity? It's high time we start living the word. We call ourselves Christians. Let's start live as Christians. Let's take care of those vulnerable children, and we shouldn't call them junkies. I rest my peace. Over to you, Mukelebai.
Thank you so much for Chilufya and for Bimbe. Well, I just observed that we keep on referring ourselves to Christian nation, Christian this, Christian that. I have come to terms with this word Christian. This is just a way of running away from responsibilities, running away from feeling guilty, running away from we want to have a very peaceful night. And what do we do? Let's call ourselves Christians so that we can go to bed and sleep. Meanwhile, it's the works that we do that tells whether we are truly Christians. Today, we see how this Christianity has been abused. We are using religion as a scapegoat from all these illicit activities that we have created to ourselves. Those kids that we are calling junks came out of homes of Christian people and family members in society. We saw them. We saw the kids growing. We saw the kids turning into what they are about, what they are into today. But what did we do? We held the Bible, we went straight to church, leaving the kids on the street. And we went to praise and give money to Papa that flies his kids where? To the UK, America, for studies. We, the poor people, from the compound, taking our 1 kwacha, 2 kwacha, going to church every Sunday. How many Sundays are there in a year? And every Sunday when you get 2 kwacha or 3 kwacha, taking to go and give this chap calling himself a preacher. And then you leaving your own kids going into drugs, start abusing drugs or in illicit activities. Then what kind of Christian are we? We can see even from our politicians, we are actually hypocrites. We are a nation full of hypocrites. If we cannot, like they say that you quoted from Gandhi, listen to that quote. Society is measured on how you treat is this society that we can even call other people's children junkies, and we are thriving, we are driving expensive cars coming from the money realized from the parents of the same junkies that died because they had no information on how to protect themselves on HIV because some politicians sat on their money, the fundraising money or the money that was supposed to be distributed to go and empower people with the knowledge. It all comes back to ourselves. We are a bunch of hypocrites in Zambia or Africa as a nation as a whole. Tuilabe pesha lesa. God is just a scapegoat. We can tell even from the politicians that have stolen. They were thieves. They stole a lot of money. Deprived the very junkies, the very people we call junkies today, of their own livelihood. Going to the churches to go and start cleaning the monies that they've been stealing. They would rather go and give a priest or donate money to a church that is going to benefit not the denomination, not the members, but individuals, those that stand in a pulpit and preach. So we are a bunch of hypocrites. Even calling those kids that are unwell, sick, instead of calling them or putting them in the right, because those kids are entitled to as free education as we give to any normal kids. The free education in this case is the government should introduce free rehabilitation centers where those kids are picked and treated so they can turn into productive human beings that can now go into the normal education system and attain the education that they deserve so they can be better tomorrow. But where we Africans, we don't even love investing in the future. We die intestate without even leaving a will, not even a wheelbarrow for our kids. Not even a. That's why to Sangat there's even so much property grabbing, because we know Nisangwap, the parent that is called a parent, died without leaving a will because was so selfish, was thinking about eating. It was hand to mouth. They were eating right there and then, stealing from the government right there and then. And today, in 2023, when we start suffering, we go and point a finger at the current government that is there. We even sympathize them. We even allow them to come to court, to church, and even address the nation. At yo, Bantu Akwalesa, these are the chosen ones. That is hypocrite. So we are a bunch of hypocrites in Zambia. Mwila mona titulia notuma Bible. We leave kids, those kids we even call junkies. Honestly, we should even be so ashamed. So very much ashamed as a nation, not just politicians. No. It starts from charity, begins from home. From the homes, in our own domestic homes. We are a bunch of hypocrites who thrives on drama. Let's protect those kids. How do we protect those kids? Those kids, babengi, when you interview them, when you interview them, their fathers were what? Were retrenched from the mines. And then one individual goes and have 300 million in his account. Who created those things? Who created the so-called Jerabos today? That name, if I was in the authority today, I would simply say anyone that is going to be heard calling a child that is unwell, that is suffering, that has never been taught on how to survive, the survival skills, that has never been brought to normalcy or to justice. If you are found calling such a child a junkie, you should be fined or be arrested, should be criminalized, because you don't know the struggle that those children go through. Junkies, my foot. Let the government step up, help those kids. Those kids are crying for help. They may not come and say it themselves in their own mouth to say twafuirisheniko turefo enchito turefo work. Imisango barechita, the activities that they are doing invokes that. It tells us to say those kids need help, not because we want to even bring this issue and talk about it on the social media just because we want to get some likes. No, let's go and help those kids. They need us. It is us, society. If those kids start killing us tomorrow, we should never, I don't even want to hear anybody claiming or pointing a finger at those chaps. No. It's us to blame. The so-called literate, the so-called smart, the so-called Christians or Muslims or Hindus, because we are letting these kids roaming the streets when we have the capacity. We drive a 300 million cars when we could save about 20 of those young men. They don't need much. We are a bunch of hypocrites in Zambia, especially we Zambians. We are a bunch, and this issue of calling us, no, we are a Christian nation, that should even be erased out of them, because we do not practice what we preach or what we call ourselves. The way we treat children, the way we treat elderlies, we refuse to pay them their rent, their pensions. We let our children go on the street under our own nose, under our watch. And then we call ourselves Christians. Every Sunday, na pejaro ku church. Come on, guys. I am not an exception to this. I too am a hypocrite because I'm a Zambian. So I'm calling every Zambian, including anyone in authority or whatever, we are a bunch of hypocrites. Except for a few individuals that have sponsored children to go to universities. Those are people that we can say only God, the real God that we pray to, help those people, not the rest. We are a bunch of hypocrites.
Yeah, I think Mukeleva, you've said it, you've nailed it. Corruption, despite calling us Christians, corruption, greed, selfishness. Zambia, like many African countries, are not poor, but it's how we manage the scarce resources, the government coffers. Our president himself was giving an example on one of the press conferences. Why should you go and buy the mayor a GX 500 million? Because in other countries, councils are the ones who look after the vulnerable children, the street kids. They make sure they are homed, they make sure they are funded, and governments needs to come up with a policy, proper policy, on how to bring these kids out of the streets. Here in the UK, what they do is, unless there's nobody who can look after that child in a home, then they'll put them in a care setup home. They'll look after them. They'll take them to school. But what they do is government funds families. They call them foster mothers, because these kids, they need to grow up in a proper family where there is a father or a mother or a guardian. Let's not even call it a father. Some they grow up with one woman, one lady, a guardian, where there is a guardian. And they fund those systems. Countries like German, the UK, They've got a policy on child poverty reduction. They give each and every family who has got a child a certain amount of money so that children don't suffer. Children go to school and they eat, and they provide food at school so that those children who come from vulnerable families, who are vulnerable, they don't have food at home, they can eat free meals at school. So how can we do that? The only way we can do that is to reduce leakages, to reduce corruption. And this government, look at how much money the previous government stole. Somebody is made a liquidator of KCM. The organization that gives money to the government, to the coffers, that contributes so much money to the coffers. What was this guy doing? Opens another bank account and starts transferring millions of dollars in his bank account. And then when he was asked, he says it's legal fees. What was that guy doing? Depriving the vulnerable Zambians, depriving those kids in the streets. Where is the money going to come to remove those kids in the street? Is that money that guy was stealing? Where is the money going to come to support those kids in the street? Is the money the senior directors at Ministry of Health they were stealing? So we need to, let's stop calling ourselves Christians until we start living as Christians. Love is not what you say from your mouth. Love is what you do. So as Zambians, let's start loving our neighbors. When you're in that job, a senior job, a CEO, a permanent secretary in government, a minister, don't just think about yourself. Think about your neighbor, because you call yourself a Christian. How do you love your neighbor when you've got all the monies, you've got the GX, you've got the millions you've stolen, and yet your neighbor's kid cannot go to school, and you call yourself a Christian nation? I rest my peace. Mr.
And
Bimbe,
Mwayasenda,
you got anything you want to say, Mr. Bimbe?
sorry Bimbe, before you come in. Mwayasenda abantu abalefu okwiminina who want to stand as president, for example, to say pay 200,000 each. Ero bonse 8 or 10 of them bayisa bamipere mpya namwe ishobora it's only one individual that's going to be picked. And then you have these kids that you are using, that these very politicians were using to go and sing, to go and campaign for them, to even fight their battles, beat their other opponents. And then today, when they have no jobs, they have no money coming in, because bali pereka yaka tantamen attitude. Today they are no longer receiving any. They are out of employment. They are out of money. They are out of income. They resort to drugs or to illicit activities. And then we want to say this government, even the current government itself, who in the government, in the parliament, look at the parliamentarian, all those chaps, I'll call them chaps. Sorry, they are honorables, but to me, all those chaps, they're just wasting. Nobody has even spoken about this issue.
Okay, thank you,
Nobody.
Mkaleba. Hold your peace on that.
The best thing they should do is to come up with policies, like you say. These are lawmakers. These are lawmakers. We want to see pieces of legislations that are going to be enacted or being introduced on. Let's argue on pieces of legislation, not argue on, oh, look at that person, the way he's dressed. Look at, no, because he stole, he what? No. These chaps, they are disappointing us as well in parliament. If I were I don't know. There's nothing proper. There's no information coming out that we can rely on and point at to say, look at the pieces of legislation, except for the repealing of the death penalty and the deformation of character, which is a plus to the current government. Of course, with some of the members of the opposition that supported that bill to be abolished. So these are the things that we need to see. Honorable, mean honorable. You call yourselves honorable in parliament. Bring issues. Not the drama to them. You are busy politicizing and taking taxpayers' money for free. In the sitting allowance, you are there the whole day. Ngawalanda kukuya chita criticize the ruling party or the opposition. Come on, guys. Let's be serious.
Thank you, Mukelebai. Mr. Bimbe, any comment before we move on?
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone, for the contribution. I also want to just put it here on record in a way. I understand there's been a long time ago, or I don't know whether now, where previous governments, I think long time ago, they've tried to solve this problem. And there's been some discussions, I believe, in different places, not really government, just suggestion people, on how they can solve this problem. Unfortunately, some of the solutions that are being talked about or which have been tried is they think, again, because we think these are subhuman, the only environment that we can take them to is a militarized or prison-like environment.
Kambilombilo.
Exactly. And then you get surprised that these people, these children,
they run away.
So these these are issues that really we need to start learning. Why is it not working? Not everybody can be taken to Zambia National Service, for God's sake. That's a militarized environment. They don't need that. They are broken. They need compassion. They need other things. So we tend to have this idea that,
and Mr. Bimbe, some of them have got mental health issues.
So they have mental health
because of the situation they found in.
Attention. So not everyone would fit into that Kambilombilo style, camp style of environment. There ought to be another way that needs. There are examples around the world. You've mentioned other countries, how to deal with this situation, how to deal with such children who are so broken in a better way. I think that, to me, needs to be looked at. There's enough literature out there that policymakers could tap into to understand how to deal with this thing, what works better. Taking them to a militarized environment just creates another problem, and then we raise our hands. Well, we did this, but they ran away. No, that's not the correct environment, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bimbe. Indeed, this is a time bomb, and our leaders, this requires political will. Our president, our noble president, our ministers, our NGOs, it's not only government. If this will affect even businesses, the mines, they are making a lot of money. They can, social responsibility. They can work together with NGOs if they don't want to give the money to the government, and remove these kids from the streets, give them better education, mental health issues. Work with them, love them. They need love also, and so that we have a better future, an educated future. Our president says education is an equalizer. Don't you want those kids also to be educated, so that they can also aspire to become engineers, doctors, presidents, whatever you can call them? Anyway, let's move forward. We're going to talk about another important topic, and this is affecting Zambia now, and mostly affecting the youth. And we've been talking about the vulnerable children, vulnerable youth. And this is the issue of the betting industry in Zambia. The question I'm posing to the panel is, for discussion, is there a need to relook at the regulatory framework around betting industry in Zambia? Before you start, Mr. Bimbe, a few days ago, there was an article in almost all the newspapers in Zambia. One lady has been jailed. Why was she jailed? She stole 77,000 kwacha from her employers and spent on gambling, hoping she was going to get the money back. And she couldn't get the money back and she's been jailed. So the question is there a need to relook at the regulatory framework around betting? And what are some of the negative impact of gambling or betting? Over to you, Mr. Bimbe.
Thank you very much. This is another issue that has just surfaced around Africa. I noticed it, I think, 3-4 years ago, traveling in different African countries, that hardly a few minutes passes, the majority of adverts on TV were about betting, which is really gambling at the end of the day. And this is an issue that the Western world have now realized that is actually a problem. And for example, in the United Kingdom, there are limits now because one research found that these betting shops are more prevalent in deprived areas of communities. That's why you find a lot of betting shops, but not in affluent areas. Why? So one of the reasons is this idea that when you bet, you're gonna get money. I know instant gratification is important, but however, there'll come a time that this is another time bomb that Zambia and most African countries will be grappling with very, very soon. There is a lot of literature out there that has studied this problem and identified some of the issues that could start cropping up with addictive gambling. And just some of them, to just mention a few, there's things like financial harms, relationship harms, mental, physical health harms, employment and educational harms, clinical and antisocial behavior harms. So there's a lot. And what Patrick has just mentioned about this young lady who, A, has lost her job, 2, who have a criminal record, 3, probably she was the breadwinner, has been taken away for 1 year. Why? Because she misused company money to go and gamble and bet, hoping to win. So I don't know what, this is a new thing. I think it just happened. Probably our government and successive government were caught unawares when these things started coming into the country. So I suspect our laws or our regulatory regimes were not geared towards dealing with this issue. However, I want to say that this is a big industry. Let's not argue about that. It creates employment. It pays taxes. But however, again, we come back to our Christian nation. Are we as government happy to collect revenue from something that creates a menace to society? I think it's time to start looking at what sort of regulatory regimes we need to start putting in. The earlier we start understanding that this is a time bomb going to happen, not even just to a society that is, not higher up in the hierarchy in terms of earning power, it might affect even those in big, better jobs, because gambling, as we all know, it's addictive. It's not a game. It's addictive. If you go in some of the Zambian compounds, there are these Chinese machines that they brought up. It's fun to play, yes, but it can create a problem. So I would urge probably the government and the powers that be to sit down, look at the evidence, look at what is out there in terms of research, in terms of literature, in terms of understanding. Take a tour of other countries that are suffering these problems, especially where these things, gambling started a long time ago in the Western world, UK, Germany, the US, and try to understand the issues that gambling brings once it gets out of control, and try to learn and pick out something that can be reused in our own laws and the regulatory regime around this thing. The area we deal with this thing, the area we start watching it, the area we start putting in measures and laws and regulation that will protect our young people and the vulnerable people from being taken over by this phenomenon, the better for society. So that would be my plea for my case. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bimbe. This is another, we were talking about vulnerable children who are called junkies. But this is another ticking bomb, as my friend Mrs. Linda Banks has correctly put it. Betting industry needs to be regulated and restricted to a particular age. In the UK, it's very difficult to open a casino because they know that gambling is as addictive as drinking alcohol, drugs, cigarettes. And the UK it has cost the UK a lot of money in terms of funding for mental health, in terms of funding for stopping people to smoke, drugs, policing, antisocial behavior. Drugs cause similar problems. Kids won't concentrate in school, they'll start stealing. People won't concentrate at work, they'll start stealing. And all they will be thinking about is gambling. They will lose job. Children will suffer. Myself had so much experience about gambling at a very young age. Not myself gambling, but my second job, I was just 20, 21, was in a casino in Zambia. I don't want to mention the name of the casino. The casino is still there, and I couldn't believe it. If I never worked in that casino, I would have been gambling, and maybe I would have been addictive. I saw rich people going bankrupt. Their children stopped going to work. Their wives running away. They are some of them breadwinners of the family. I saw people killing themselves because of gambling. I saw people selling the last house that they had for the family because of gambling. So gambling, yes, it brings business. But again, governments, in the UK, it's not easy to open a casino because the rules are so hard. And not only that, one of the ways government can restrict gambling is by overtaxing this industry. Yes, continue with gambling, but we need more money. Why does the government need more tax? So that they can channel it to mental health, they can channel it to education, because they need to educate people about the evils of gambling. The gamblers themselves won't teach people how to, not to gamble. They can even force these gamblers to put some like what they put in cigarettes. Cigarettes is dangerous. Cigarettes can kill. To put some of these things in their adverts, warning people that gambling is dangerous while they're advertising gambling. But education, real education, falls on the government. And where does the government get that money to educate its people? From schools. Where does the government get the money? By overtaxing these guys. Yes, you're going to have the industry, but we're going to tax you more than the other industries, because gambling is going to cause problems like mental health. It's going to cause problems like people going into streets because their parents have lost jobs. And we're going to need that money to use for that. Any comment, Mr. Bimbe, before we move on to another topic, the last topic?
Womkelebai needs to.
Womkelebai. Oh, Womkelebai. Sorry, I forgot about you. I'm so sorry. Over to you.
Am I not visible enough?
Oh, maybe because your video wasn't there. Over to you before we move to the last.
Bimbe had no video as well, but you called him. Anyway, that's good. I'm just kidding. on that aspect of gambling, that it takes me back to the same thing that I was talking about being us Zambian being hypocritical. The Bible is clear. The ones that we follow, Christianity forbids. It's actually a sin to gamble. It is a sin. It's in the Bible. Ask any clergyman today, they will tell you it is a sin. But it's funny because we say gambling is a sin, but yet when we also go to church, people, when they are busy praying and hoping for miracles to happen, they gamble. And they leave a lot of colossal sum of tithe in those boxes in anticipating for, and then we go and tax the person that is gambling from the gambling whatever, and then we do not tax the preacher man, the church. Churches are exempted from tax. I don't know if maybe the laws have changed, but I would love that Zambia be the first country to start taxing the churches today. Maybe we shall see the level of false prophecy and hypocrisy going down, because vachilamo ukubepa abantu. They would rather not talk about gambling, and they would rather go and talk about other things, other sins. A sin is a sin. If it is there in the Bible, even our laws ourselves, we have the lottery act. We know what is stated there. The laws are there, gentlemen. The government is there. The only thing that we don't have is the will from our enforcers, the law enforcers themselves, or the political will from our people that we have entrusted with power. We have Zambia Lottery. Where do you think they get their authority from? Anything that is operating under our government, it's legit. It's an act. It's an act of Parliament. Why are we not pointing a finger at the jackpot, Zambia, whatever you call it, lottery club? Because they also do the same thing. They are promoting what? It's gambling. Because when you are busy scratching, you want to win jackpot, you are gambling. And people get addicted to that. Yes, we know. But we are regulated. We have the laws. But instead of spreading out talk about this addictive or the sickness that may come in nature, that may cause the dangers, Since when have we ever heard the Minister of Information coming out to talk about no Mwinachta Gambo or the Minister of previous government, Minister of what? Religion and whatever. No, we do not gamble. It's against the law. It's against the Bible. When? Nobody. Not until it affects your family member. That's when you say, this is really bad. So we should not do that. That is what brings me back to the issue of being hypocritical. We are a hypocritical nation. But I just want to say something here before I go any further. That I may have come a little bit strong on calling the honorables in parliament that these chaps. My apologies. I don't want to be censured. Let me put this. I just want to apologize that I didn't mean to. I was just gotten by, emotion. I got emotion because of the issue that we are discussing. They are quite sensitive, and some of us, we get lighten up like that. So my apologies. You are honorables, but we want you. Don't let us start beginning to call you chaps. Back to the topic. I just wanted to say on this aspect of gambling that we should just put up, we should just tighten up our current laws over this, so that we prevent people from losing their lives or losing properties or getting addicted, and that may cause a lot of more havoc that will put children on the street, like Chilufya put it. So it is imperative that our legislatures come up with laws. Please, let's read our laws. Let us read, Zambians. Let us read, so that when we talk from the well-informed information, a background, so that we know. Our legislatures also should read, not to read things on social media, but read the laws, so that we can fix those lacunas that we find that are missing, and then bring out issues that may help us tomorrow, help our generation tomorrow. Because apatuli, we keep on like going back to recycling back to the same old laws that are really damaging our society. Be it the gambling law, be it the deformating or calling or neglecting our own children that become junkies. At the end of the day, we call them jerabos. Be it women that we are busy violating and abuse them, and then when they cry, then we introduce GBV, violent, blah blah blah. We want to claim as though we are the perfect one when we are so come up with laws that will prevent in perpetuity, that if this comes in the future, our children that we are raising today, those who are getting free education, may also find and come up with the laws at the time that will suit them. But for now, we have so many thieves, so many hypocrites. Bring up those laws that will kill such kind of illicities, or deter people from getting into such kind of illicit activities that are really bringing a moral decay to our society. Our society today is really not perfect, to be honest.
Yeah, so Mukeleba, just like Mr. Bimbe, you spot on. Gambling brings a lot of money, as you said, and but it needs to be highly regulated, and we need to learn from other countries. Not anybody under 25 can gamble in the UK. The government knows why. There is literature, there is empirical study, empirical data. And they also know that gambling has got other issues, criminal issues and social behavior, cultural issues. And as the government, so the point is, as the government got the policy to deal with the effects of gambling, that's the question we should ask the government, because there will be unsocial behavior. Are you gonna call them junkies? Because they became junkies as a result of, somebody in their family was involved in gambling, went bankrupt, they had nowhere to stay. If you got policies in place to deal with that, in other countries where they've got even a private, what do you call it, confidential call line funded by the gambling companies, where people who are struggling with gambling can phone and they will talk to
But
them.
in Zambia, there's so much
So
stigma.
the question is, this gambling industry is growing. If we got those structures in place, if we got many prisons, if we got more police, because it's going to lead to unsocial behavior, it's going to lead to more crimes. If we got more judges, so you see, a small thing can be a ticking bomb if it's not properly regulated and
Do
and
we,
and, and restricted.
Chilufya, do we even have the department at the police that looks that the anti-gambling unit in our police
No,
at our police
no,
station?
it doesn't have to sit at the police. It can sit at one of the ministries, maybe Ministry of Culture, or
Yeah,
you
but
know, yeah.
I have a feeling. I have
Because
actually.
one of the roles of the government, Mukelebai, is to educate its citizens. The government can educate its citizens on alcohol, the dangers of alcohol, because if people are drinking recklessly, they are not eating properly, they are smoking, they are taking drugs, what is going to happen?
But you see, you
No,
saw
let me
how
finish. What is going to happen? There will be more people having cancers, having diseases, ending up in hospitals. And where is the government going to get the money? So some of these problems, that looks like the UK now spends billions on how to stop people smoking. So you see, something that was like a social thing, let's go and smoke after school, has caused the government to spend billions. But in a country like Zambia, do we have billions to spend when the real problems of gambling will start coming? Are we prepared for that? Because this is like a cyclone Freddy. It's a ticking bomb. It can come and it can haunt us.
No, I wanted to respond to you on the issue of drinking, because we had a doctor that went on trying to talk about beer, but look at the way we attacked him, how we pushed him from one point to another. We demonized him, we called him names, we actually
It's moderation. It's moderation.
stereotyped him, including
Anything,
the
even
government.
sugar, even salt, is dangerous. Even water, it's moderation. But again, beer is addictive. Gambling is addictive. Drugs are addictive. So
Society
the
and
government
political will.
has a role to educate the people. But again, when it's like what I was saying, one way of deterring gambling in Zambia, the growing industry, is to increase the taxes on gambling, and then the excess money, the government can use it on education and other things that will come with the negative impacts of gambling. Mr. Bimbe, you're looking, before we move, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think these things, as we say, they are not zero-sum game. Gambling will be there in some shape or form. However, what I am concerned about is unregulated gambling and reckless gambling, which means the industry is a growing industry. I think that's what I'm saying. It caught the government or the regulators, uh, uh, just out, it caught them out
Got
because
them napping.
technology moved very, very, very quickly. and this thing started coming up, and then the advertising was very slicky and all sorts of things, and they never thought about really how to maybe putting certain things within the licensing regime, then on the enforcement and regime, and also on the advertising itself. So all this was not kind of put together in a way. So there is this proliferation of this thing because technology is great. Facebook is great for advertising, for reach. Everybody, the majority of our people are on Facebook. They get these messages. There are stories of people, being shown with large sums of money they've won, but not everyone, because the odds of winning these things are very, very high. So what I'm concerned about is just the way it has proliferated in a kind of unregulated way, where now I think it's going to become very, very harmful. So the thing that I want to think the government could be looking at is there's evidence out there. There are ways of strengthening some of the laws, the regulation, the enforcement, and sorts of things. And also how to make the gambling industry also be responsible to an extent of helping, as Mr. Chilufya said, helping in creating some of the mitigation around that, or some of the solving that some problem. So I'll just read through some of the figures that comes out for, in the UK on the economic and social costs associated with gambling-related harms. So, for example, this analysis was for 2023 analysis. The estimated annual excess direct financial cost to government associated with harmful gambling is equivalent to 412.9 million. It also shows that within the estimate for the annual societal value of health impacts is equivalent to between 635 to 355.5 million in 2021 to 2022 prior. So this provides a combined estimate of approximately 1.5 to 1.77 billion pounds. That's just the cost itself out of that. But you have to remember,
Mr. Bimbe, just hold your peace. Just hold your peace. 1.2 billion pounds.
1.77 billion pounds.
Which is about 5% of our GDP.
And remember, that's the money that we are looking at.
And that is just the money the UK is using, is losing because of the impact of gambling.
Yeah.
So now imagine when Zambia reached that stage. Have we got that kind of money in place?
Yeah. In money terms, it might not be that much. However,
panelists,
country,
let Mr. Bimbe finish.
These costs actually are coming from a country that has learned about gambling, that has got, a regulatory regime that is somehow working. Of course, it's not working perfectly. They keep evolving. They are much more advanced. Now, take this scenario back to an African country, Zambia included, that hasn't thought through some of these laws. So you can imagine the amount of money that will go into dealing with this issue, rather than this money going to increasing CDF, for example, helping youth empowerment and women groups and all other things.
So Mr. Bimbe, about here. Mr. Bimbe, right? There will be kids who will be affected as a result of this. Are we going to call them junkies or help them?
That's another, in our society. It seems that's the norm, isn't it? So
my question, Bimbe, was, do we have statistics from
Yeah, those are
out,
statistics he's talking
no,
about from the UK,
no. We are not. I mean,
from
you live
Zambia.
in UK. I want to talk about. We are talking about our country here.
Yeah.
I don't think
Do
there are
we
any
have
statistics.
statistics from Zambia that we
So
can make comparison and simply say, yes, this is the waste of our resources. We are spending so much money, and how many people, or what kind of people that are that goes to do this gambling business? Is it those that have the capacity, that have that are that are privileged to have finances, and they go and gamble it and misuse, or a poor villager in a village that has no, that is also fighting to find money to put on the table, or to put food on the table? Are those villagers prone to this gambling business, or it is only to those that have the money, especially kwati ababa ibire mpia abaleshika empia bena face musonda, like those can go to gamble and they get addicted? Are those the type of people you're talking about? Are these our target, or what does the Zambian statistics say on gambling? Are we in trouble? Is it a matter that we need to be concerned with now, or it is an issue that is not going to raise so much, like we are not so much concerned about homosexual in Zambia? That's my question. Thank you.
I'll answer your question in this way. As to whether we know the statistics and the figures, probably there is some scanty figures around. If you search most of the literature, of course, it's not mostly from Zambia. But we don't have a formalized way of collecting these statistics. Now, I mentioned that we need to relook at some of these policies so that we kind of relook at the regulatory regimes and the legislation. Of course, if we as a government are going to create policies, regulation, laws based on evidence, then it goes to say that we need to start collecting some of these statistics. And the time to do that is actually now. So I talked about the the licensing regimes. So we need to find a way of probably embedding within the licensing regimes on how to report some of these things. Secondly, some of these gambling machines people use, even the betting, is electronic. So collecting those statistics is easier, provided, the licensing regime allows that the government can have real-time information on that. Then coming to the social side, I think this is a question of how government working with the researchers can find a way of starting collecting that data and analyzing it. Then that can inform how we move forward, going forward. So that's probably the way I would answer that question. Whether this is going to be a problem, I think it's going to be a problem because our population is growing. These things, where we are coming from, where in different countries, it started like that. But as time goes by, as with anything, this creates this harm. If I take you back, let's look at Facebook. Facebook was fun when it started. However, in most countries now, Facebook is a little bit more, social media is a little more regulated, not on the technology. Of course, the technology side is, and the way you use it is also kind of now policed in a particular way. For example, we've got in countries where they put revenge porn, where, if you did whatever, you take a video and then the relation breaks down and somebody posts it on social media or whatever, it becomes a problem. So look at Zambia today. Social media is full of bullying, full of, really evil things. If you look at the comments that are passed to a lot of individuals, some are even contemplating society. So again, it's because we are catching up. These things moved very, very quickly. But our laws, as in every country, takes long to move, to catch up. However, I would also caution the more you regulate, you have to balance, otherwise you're going to kill innovation. So it has to be some sort of a balancing act, how you try to do that. I mean, you remember just a few years ago, whenever there were elections in Africa, most African countries, internet was shut down. That was a way of regulating it. But now we understand, the internet is what businesses use now. It's important. COVID has shown us that we can still run our educational systems over these networks. So if we start shutting it down for political expediency, then we are destroying the economy again. So regulation has to be balanced. It has to be forward-looking. But of course, enforcement needs to be put in place as well. So that's the way I think we just need to be aware that anything we do, we need to think of how we're going to regulate it and move with times. There are examples around the world. There are people that have moved ahead. We can learn from those countries so that we are not starting from afresh. That would be probably my answer.
That's fantastic, Mr. Bimbe and Mukelevai for that contribution. On the last point, we all talk about this, even politicians talk about this, that the opposition offers checks and balances. So in a democratic dispensation, we need to have a very strong opposition so that they offer checks and balances to the ruling government. But the question I have for the panel is that is it important to have a credible and strong opposition politics in Zambia? And also, can you also comment on the happenings of the biggest political opposition party in Zambia, in the PF? And also, if you can comment on kutumpa statement made by our president when he was in the Copperbelt. Over to you, Mr. Bimbe.
This is a loaded one. It's very, very interesting. A credible and strong opposition politics important. Yes, they are. In a democracy, we are competing against ideas. We are competing, by giving hope to the citizens how we are going to run the affairs of the country, so that those people have good livelihood and they are able to feed, they have good health, they have everything. So that's what we are trying to do. We are creating a civilized society. This comes down to then, how does that happen? Because, there are different pillars within a democratic dispensation, and politics is one of them, opposition politics included, the press, the churches, the third sector, which is the CSOs, the non-governmental organization. They all play a role, and us citizens as well play a role. So in Zambia currently, our opposition politics leaves much to be desired. I say so because the type of holding the current government accountable, or so-called checks and balances, really are disappointing. So disappointing. I'm not worried about this smaller party, but I'm concerned about the PF because this is the largest opposition party. And remember, in opposition politics, you're a government in waiting, right? We've seen how PF governed the country, and everybody, we know what happened. They lost the election. But instead of reflecting and re-strategizing, or the so-called rebranding, so that they can offer, good politics, make the UPND, run for their money. We get, as our good doctor Madongo Dongo, Mushat says, Madongo Dongo politics. That's what we are having, and this is not being helped. I've come to think, how were these guys really looking smart when they were in government, but now they're in opposition? They can't really be strategic. They can't really offer that credible. And my conclusion to that, it's not really empirical, is that I think the civil service really helped them. A lot of these probably who are ministers, permanent, whatever, they looked smart because of the civil service. Look now, they don't have that support underneath to help them. Look at what comes out. It's full of, inaccuracies, full of single issue that doesn't make sense. Today they'll be looking at, if you follow through, when the new government, our new government formed, the UPN, which I support, there was the issue of free education. It took time to be rolled out. The opposition politics were on it. This government has failed. Free education has failed. Free education was implemented. It's quiet. They moved to another issue. Oh, they said they were going to employ these teachers, these nurses. Look, it's not happening because there were delays. It happened. They moved to another one. Oh, now the USA is coming to set up this what you call military base, which wasn't true as well. It has happened. Now it's LGBTQ. It's now this democratic conference that is going to happen. So you can see that there's no thread, there's no theme, there's no direction. And then the so-called people that are vying for the coveted seat of president of PF, they are all over to outshine each other, but without substance. So I wonder if any one of them wins, whether PF will be intact. I fail to understand that. And also, secondly, I fear that with the way the previous president is being propped up, coming up, might destabilize the same PF. And if they are not careful, it will just hand over the majority, the two-third majority that is needed in parliament to lift Mr. Lungu's immunity, supported by the PF MPs. That might happen if they don't handle their internal problem. So that is what I fear for Zambia. Then we're going to move the way it happened under MMD. What happened? MMD ruled for how long? 20 years. There was no opposition politician. And this is what is going to happen once their convention happens. So the best they can deal with the internal squabbles, the better they can offer, credible opposition, credible checks and balances. As for the other ones, the Socialist Party, I don't really think that they can get anywhere. They don't have any agenda other than fighting in so-called imperialists. And yet their president today was photographed in Russia attending a conference. Yet Russia is pursuing an imperialist agenda in Ukraine and other former Eastern Bloc countries. So what is imperialism? It's a misunderstood concept in Zambia. Imperialism is expanding beyond your territorial boundaries. That's what imperialism. But you see, our good socialist party think imperialists are just the Americans and the British and the Germans. No, that's not true. So there's socialism. Socialism has never worked. There's no evidence that socialism has lifted people out of poverty. No. So this is why I'm thinking PF is the only party that can become very credible as an opposition party. They need to sort out their mess. Now, coming to the famous kutumpa statement, here is my take. I think the president needs to start asserting himself. The so-called freedoms are being taken for granted. Anyone can say anything. And I think it was also misunderstood, because when we use such words, it's like me saying, don't be stupid. There is a context to anything. So there is this thing.
Or don't be silly.
Don't be silly. It's wrapped into a context. And there was the context that the president was speaking, used that term. And for the whole country to rise up, again, I come to Mr. Mkeleva, where you say, we are a hypocritical country. So such a simple word, misconstrued, and now it's running run of mills. Well, come on, it's not an insult. It is a way of expressing disgust at something, not at an individual, but at something. I think we need to be very clear about that. And I, for one, am happy that the president came out that way. He needs to, and he needs to do that more often. He needs to show that he's in charge. The people of Zambia gave him the mandate to rule, not to be distracted by the people that we know destroyed the country. So kudos to him. He needs to continue on that path. I don't care whether the churches, the so-called Christian, the opposition would worry about that. That, to me, is just a straightforward issue. If you go to other countries, mature democracy, the US, the UK, you can see the amount of real insults that they pour on their leadership. You'll be amazed. So really, I don't have a problem with that. And besides, if we go back, the president was called that by Mr. Zero, the useless president. Even by our other opposition, NDC, used certain words, but the president never reacted. So these are normal. It shouldn't cause us another problem. There are more pressing issues that the opposition politics should really be talking about. Working with government. And I think the president did mention that. As we move forward, trying to work on the constitutional amendments and these kind of laws, there are certain low-hanging fruits that we can deal with without requiring, certain things to be in place. And the president offered that to the opposition MPs. Come on board. Let's look at these other smaller things that we can deal with. So working together is okay. It doesn't mean when you're in opposition, then you become enemies, which I don't believe they are enemies, even those politicians. I'm sure they go and drink together. They play together. But when they're out there, they want to show that they are really enemies. But unfortunately, what comes out is not really what I would call proper checks and balances that will make the government wake up and say, really, we need to work hard on this one, because the opposition is a government in waiting. So that is what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bimbe. That was fantastic. Before Mkeleva comes in, let me just say something here. I think 100% agree with you that the opposition in general in Zambia is fragmented, seriously fragmented. And in a democratic dispensation, you need to have a very strong democracy opposition to offer real checks and balances, and not the propaganda the PF is offering. And the PF, as an opposition party, the biggest opposition party, they've been struck by something like Cyclone Freddy. They are a disaster in waiting. Instead of going back to the people and apologize and then rebrand and come up with a good leader, a credible leader who can offer checks and balances, all they are doing is propaganda. All they are doing is to distract HH. All they want is HH to fail. That's why they can even go to the extent of using national events like the Women's Day to go and dress their women, and then start saying that the UK, the PF has come back, and they're gonna win 2026. How do you win elections just like that? So their agenda, I agree with you, Mr. Bimbe, is to distract the government, and HH is focused, and I don't think he will be distracted. And but they will try. And if you look at Mr. Lungu going to church and start making such provocative statements using the church, it's really sad, because when you look 2 years ago in 2021, before the elections, HH wasn't allowed to go to churches. He was asked to get a permit, and some minister actually banned a provincial minister. He banned HH from going to the Copperbelt. That's what they. But they're allowed to go to church, and then they're trying to use the church now to provoke the president. And then they couldn't allow HH to go to church. And HH saying kutumpa, I think he didn't make any mistake. He was just responding to the statement our former president made in church. He started making such silly statements wherever he goes, trying to provoke HH. But one point I'm trying to make here, this is my opinion and this is my assessment. This is my gut feeling. Even when Balungu was making that statement, our president responded to, you could see that he was jittery, he was shaking. Some people were passing jokes that maybe he had not yet drunk Jameson, But what I'm suspecting, and this is my gut feeling, but instead of PF choosing a leader, Balungu wants to come back and become the leader. There are a lot of things happening in PF. They are saying, yes, Lungu resigned, but the Central Committee never approved that resignation, accepted that resignation, so he's still the president of the party. Yeah, and but that later went to cabinet, and when it went to cabinet, what did it ignite? Mr. Lungu start enjoying the privileges of a former president. State security, I think it's 80% of the salary of the current president. So if he says he never resigned, but he is getting those benefits, is that not fraud? But let's not discuss about that. The point I'm trying to drive home here is, look at the corruption that happened in the PF government. 400 million involved in the jet, in the presidential jet. Somebody has just been, 6 people have been arrested so far to appear in court. The latest was the secretary in the Defense Force. Look at the corruption at KCM. Look at the corruption with the case that is currently now in court, Faith Musonda. Where did Faith Musonda get that money? That money, there were serial numbers. Look at the corruption at Ministry of Finance. Look at the corruption everywhere. You know, I've come to suspect that all these corruptions, all these cases are pointing to the one person. And who is that person? Lungu. But they cannot arrest him now because he's got immunity. So it looks like Lungu now is sensing that the net is getting closer to him. So what does he do? I have to go to politics. I have to go back to politics, and then use that as an excuse that now, because I've gone back to politics, they failed to run the country. Things are so expensive, just like what he did when he went to the shop, mocking about the price of Miri milk as if he didn't know. So now they are persecuting me because I've come back to politics. And the real thing is they are prosecuting him because a lot of crimes are pointing to him, because not all those crimes would have happened without Lungu being involved. I rest my peace. Mukelebai, over to you.
Thank you. At least you did not forget me today. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. We have really gone right far. I'm not going to be dwell so much on these people that we know have not been honest to the Zambian people. There's a lot of lies after lies in our country today, and by the people that actually perpetrated these sufferings that we are facing today, or this hardship that our Zambian people are facing today. Barely 16 months after them losing power, there's this issue that we are talking about, to say the Zambia is the high cost high cost of living in Zambia is too much. The cost of commodities just too much. And when I look at how did we come here, how did we reach this far within these 16 months? Is it the new government that just took over that hasn't known how to go about the economy, or if they inherited a well stable economy as the PF purport, why then within a short period of time are we having these issues, the challenges of economical hardships and these current challenges that we have today? This goes to show that this current government is really working under stress, and they are working day and night, just try to bring back the economy to normalcy. Now, when you see this, the so-called government, like what Bimbe said, to say the previous government, when you hear the way they are busy criticizing the current government, you would think that these have been in the opposition for more than 10 years. The PF have been in the opposition for 20 years or 30 years. The way they are putting the blame, all the blame onto the current government today, the way they are pushing up their so-called checks and balances, one can tell that Ababantu Aba, they have some kind of dementia, or they have some kind of sickness, forgetfulness. They have forgotten that they just came out of power. Some of them are still finishing utuma salary twabo. Just within 16 months, you know. And some of them, those that store like Benefit Musonda and the group, right now they are busy trying because they know that the financial institutions are well guarded now because there's a new sheriff in town. So nobody can go to any financial institution to go and clean, to launder the money. They can't. Then what do you see? What are the attributes that makes you see that these chaps are now busy involving other institutions? These institutions I'm talking about are the so-called churches. Who taxes the churches? Nobody. Are we hearing Hakainde busy going around the country from one church to another, donating or leaving money behind? No. Who are we hearing? Nibana nitule umfabaresha indalama muma churches donating every day. Umuntu tawakwatana salary these days. Some of these chaps, now I'm going back to my word. Some of these chaps had their accounts frozen. But you as Zambians, aren't you even surprised that the very chaps are now having the capacity to go and pay presidential fees, have the capacity to go and donate monies to the churches? What do you call that? And what goes on behind closed doors? Because we know who these people are. We know what they are capable of doing because they were in government, in steering committees. They were heading the country. Look at what they did to the fire tenders, to the purchases of helicopters, to the purchase of planes. How did they inflate the monies? Lay low. Lay low. They are a darling of the clergymen. Today, the churches, they are busy worshipping them. Today, they have become born agains. Imwe. Mwema Zambia namwe na mwikala ati yo tabaiva. Mulepusha ama priest benu abo bene balekita ama meetings n'abantu benu muma corridors or muma offices. You don't know what these guys are doing behind closed doors. That's why I, for one, would love to call upon Madam Chilwa and other investigative wings. Do not be scared to investigate churches, because right now they are using the churches as a scapegoat, as a hidden, because they know that Muma churches do not pay tax. Do you know that? Shirenda lama mulipira aba ku church balaya mukushisa mfya basende mpia shenu bapela bali abakerenka ero babule impia shabakerenke shakwiba bapele church, so that church ye iteshani isende mpia shira batwale muma communities, so that money, stolen money, mixed up, so that tamwakabe kate. This is not just a dreaming from the blues. No, we know how these guys work. We know how they are. Coming to the issue of the wrangles in their party, one wonders how did they even manage to govern us for this long? If they can't even 16 months out of office, they are failing to govern themselves. A group of MCC, they are failing to come up to a concrete. And you expect these people to come back and rule the whole nation? Serious, these guys, they are not ready to come back because they know, and they know each other, to say they don't trust one another. Are you not surprised that they have about 10 candidates vying for being presidents? Do you honestly think that if the others are left out, they are going to sit back and relax and say it's okay? When we hear all our audios that are circulating all over, and we see our court proceedings going on, who are fighting? Do you hear UPND in this? No. Themselves, because they don't trust each other too. So be careful, Mema Kalachalo. Coming to the issue of Wupuba, Kutumpok. Mr. Hakainde Hichilema is not Bemba. Mr. Hakainde Hichilema has left that interpretation to the Bemba speaking people to interpret. From what we, the Zambian, know, Ukutumpa, like everyone else says, is not an insult. If they are saying it's an insult, then the question is, who did Hakainde insult? Did he insult Lungu as purported, or he was insulting the behavior, or he was simply saying Kutumpoko because somebody uttered words that needed a reaction like that? So I'm not going to go any further, but I would simply say Bo Hakainde Hichilema was in his rightful mind to say what he said. And if somebody feels offended and feels insulted, please, that's why we have the court system. Take him to court. Nakachinda was taken to court for insulting the president, using bad language to the president at the time when the law was enforced. So he is appearing before the court. I believe Chilufya Tayari also is facing the same charges. So it is up to the court to interpret. But this time around, if anybody, including Volungu, feels offended, please be our guest. Utilize the systems that are already laid down. These are the judges that you appointed. Go to them and petition. Simple. Let's hear what the court will interpret. Balaya Mukwita, ama local court justices to come and interpret on ama chiefs so that they can interpret what is the word ukutumba if you want to make a fuzzy out of it. But for now, we feel as Zambians, you are diverting the attention of real issues. Zambians need to put food on the table. Let's criticize this government to put money in our pockets and to put food on our people's table and reduce the reduce the prices of commodities so that Zambians can afford. These are issues that we need to talk about, bearing in mind the effects. What caused this? Why are we here today? So, in a nutshell, by opposition, please, lekeni kutumpa. Thank you.
So, Mukerebai, so you are under Kutumpoko, put your house in order. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think they need to put their house in order before they can think about ruling the country. They also need to apologize. Instead of going to church and hide in churches. I rest my peace. Anyway, we're now coming towards the end of the program. Mr. Bimbe, your closing remarks, 2 minutes.
I think I've spoken a lot, and these are some of the issues that are passionate to me. The misrepresentation of these important events. I I hope there will be, we started a debate to start and figuring out how best that can be, going forward, it can be handled. There were nice subjects. We discussed very, very good themes. And I hope we did justice. As we already said in the opening remarks, that we are not experts. We are just Zambians like anybody else who are passionate about our country, about our people. We want to see it prosper. And this is our own little way of saying thank you to the country that gave us something. For me, to be where I am, it is because of the country, because of the taxes people paid. And I feel, I've got a right to speak. I'm not saying I'm an expert. Of course, I'm an expert in my own field, but on certain issues regarding social stuff, I think each and every Zambian should get concerned. And we have to also remember that politics should not be a game. Every citizen of Zambia, including the whole Africa, we need to take politics seriously. Everybody should be concerned about politics, the way we practice the politics, the way we run our politics. It should, as Clever said, we don't have a lot of women in politics. It's because of the way politics are being practiced. We need to change that, because a country's well-being, a country's prosperity, pulling people out of poverty, it requires politics. Have a stable political environment, everything falls in place. Have bad politics, even the little credibility you have, which will attract in foreign investment or even local investment, just goes away. You have a bad economy. Once you have a bad economy, everything dies. You can't send your children to school. Hospitals will have no medicine. Civil servants, doctors can't get paid, pensioners. So it's all these things. So everything hinges on politics. So we need to take it very, very seriously. And everybody should have a right to speak about politics. We can't leave it to the same people who are just jumping from one party to another. When you argue with them, they say, oh, this is politics. No, politics is the essence of a country's existence, basically. So we need to take it seriously. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bimbe, for that fantastic closing remark. I think it was 2 minutes. Mukeleva, 2 minutes or so. Closing remark.
My closing remarks are as follows. Let us respect women. Let us observe their rights. Let us not treat them as though they are our servants. Let us leave them to decide, make their own decision on how they wish to celebrate Women's Day, this Women's Day, National Women's Day. We should not put our nose into their business unless they invite us to come to their show. Let us learn to look after the young ones, those that are troubled, that are drug addict, that are unwell, that are mentally challenged. Let us provide them with free facilities that they can afford to go and get help. I'm talking about the people, the youths, the young ones that we have today in Zambia, including our politicians, sadly call them Jerabos. It's never too late, they can be helped. And my last remark is to the legislatures, time of being a new brooms in parliament is no longer with you guys, it's long gone. We don't want to hear you trying to make names for yourselves so that you show people that you can also raise point of orders that are controversial, where you put now the whole country into debating about your behavior. Bring out issues, introduce pieces of legislations that will help your constituencies to develop your constituencies and benefit your people. This is the time, because you have already used 1 year. To our president and the team, thank you for your efforts. We see you, we hear you, we know what you're doing. All we can say, please give us feedbacks. We need feedbacks. We need information of what is currently going on. Finally, to the adjudicators, it's been long overdue. We are waiting. Unnecessary adjournments, unnecessary prolonging of cases. Justice delayed is justice denied. Please allow the justice process to go on, and we want to see thieves being convicted, given stiffer punishments, and those that will be found not guilty, please release them. Let them come back to society so they can be productive. That's what I can say for now. Thank you.
That was fantastic, Mr. Bimbe, Mokelevai. That was fantastic. It was a fantastic program, and we clearly stated from the beginning that this is just our opinion, and this is what we feel, and we're not experts, but it's one way of paying back, one way of contributing to the development of our country. We talked about very important topics here. The issue of violence in the country. We need peace. We need a very good political environment. As Mr. Bimbe said, politics are very important. A lot of people say politics are only for politicians. Christians shouldn't be involved in politics. Uh, um, um, Autocrats shouldn't be involved in politics. Business people, politics is very important because because the politicians are the ones who create an environment. For Mr. Bimbe and myself to get out of the comfort of our jobs, to start businesses. They create an environment conducive for businesses to invest in our country. And if all politicians are doing is fighting, then that's not good for our country. Civil wars never started, just from the blue. They started as a small thing. People fighting because one party has more people wearing their regalia at a national event shouldn't be tolerated in our country, shouldn't be condoned. I think our government needs to come up with rules and regulations to stop people wearing party regalias at national events, and these national events should be organized by by neutral people, organizations, not politicians. Politicians shouldn't take over these events. These are national events and these are not political events. And then coming to the issue of neglected, vulnerable young people who are now called junkies, I think that is a ticking time bomb. I think our politicians, our governments, they need to come up with laws and policies that they need to start planning for these kids in the short, medium, and long term. Because if this is left for a long time, this is a ticking bomb. This is a ticking time bomb. And gambling is something that needs to be well regulated and controlled in our country, or else we're gonna have problems. We can learn from developed countries which have well regulated laws and enforcements on gambling. And as Mr. Bimbe said, the UK alone spends about 1.2 billion just to deal with the effects of gambling. That amounts to about 5%, if I'm not mistaken, of our GDP. And these are countries which have got strong laws and enforcement on gambling. In the UK, you can't gamble if you're below 25 years. In the UK, if you're gambling online, there is a certain restriction that how much money you can spend over a period of 1 month. You know, they will tell you, no, 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 your limit is £500. You cannot spend more than £500. And then the government has got money. They've got policies. They've got money put aside to deal with the effects of gambling. Because gambling, if left unattended to, it will cause a lot of problems. It will cost the governments a lot of money. You know, yeah. So these are some of the important issues we've talked about. We talked about the impact of the Cyclone Freddy in Malawi. You know, we need to learn from that. We need to stop firefighting. We need to start planning. Not just firefighting. You know, we also need to look at food security as a matter of agency. We need to start planning for that. Climate change is real. You know, we are cutting trees every day. Are we planting more trees every day? We need to look after our environment. We need to start planning for such disasters so that when those disasters are come, we are ready. We need to start mitigating, reducing the impact of those disasters happening. You know, with climate change, we're gonna have droughts. Are we gonna die because there are droughts? That's when governments should start having policies in place, investing in irrigation. We've got a lot of water in Zambia. We're surrounded by big rivers. We've got abundance water in Zambia. So countries that doesn't have water, like Israel, some countries are in deserts, but they are growing grapes, they are growing apples, they're growing a lot of food. We can do that. And the other point we talked about is floods. We need to start having laws and regulations, especially at the local government level. Inspectors, when they are building houses, when they are giving plots, they need to look at the environment. Where are we building the houses? Is that place swampy? Is it bound to be flooded? Then they need to put proper drainage system. They need to build houses in such a way that when there are floods, people won't be affected, or the impact will be very minimal. Yeah, and I think the president visiting the Copperbelt, that was fantastic. There are so many issues to be dealt with in the Copperbelt, and I think we're getting closer to the solutions in the Copperbelt. And the Copperbelt is so strategic, both to the economy of our country and also to the existence of our political party. No government, no political party has stayed in government, has won elections without the Copperbelt. So for the UPND to win 2026, Copperbelt must be watched. Copperbelt is strategic. We need to look after the people in the Copperbelt. We need to resolve the problems that are in the Copperbelt as quickly, as a matter of agency, as quickly as possible. And on that note, we're coming, towards the close of the program. Our viewers, thank you so much for your viewership. Wherever you've been watching us all over the world, we've been here for such a long time. We expected to have this program for only 1.5 hours, but look where we are, 3 hours, 35 minutes. Thank you so much for your viewership. Mr. Bimbe, thank you so much. Bomukeleba, thank you so much. And we had also Father Mpombo, thank you so much. And our viewers, our viewers from Facebook, YouTube, some of those contributions, fantastic. Well done. Thank you so much. And lastly, I just want to say, may the good Lord bless our beloved mother Zambia. Good night and bye for now.